All right, this is podcast number 7 on the Yeti's Den. With me today is my fifth guest, Alex Cidado.
How you doing?
Doing well. And before we begin talking, so the theme of my podcast is sports and politics, really
Mhm.
politics and sports, more politics than sports, but they're both a lot of politics and sports, and also some other life advice stuff in there. Um, this the podcast is still in its early days, but another milestone is all the guests I've had on so far are can be described as more liberal than conservative. Like they all voted for Kamala Harris, so you're the first conservative to appear on my podcast.
Well, you didn't know I voted for Kamala? Come on, man. Nothing wrong with that, of course. No, it's all good. But yes, sir, I am
All right,
conservative.
yeah, and the first Republican to be on the podcast, but it's these kinds of podcasts I think we need to have more of in America. Like I think people it's pretty obvious the temperature's been turned up. Like it's much hotter than it was like 10, 12 years ago.
Mhm.
I mean, there's a lot of people that are unfriending each other on Facebook, and people are like people don't want to talk to each other just because they disagree with each other, but we got to find ways to find common ground and like respectfully disagree with one another.
I agree. I think that ultimately, what all boils down to is that we have more in common than we have differences, right? So, I mean, obviously, you and I grew up in a similar area, but we're different guys. I mean, we lived together. It was a long time ago. We were young men. But ultimately, what I always admired about you is that you were always fair and you were fair and you always were graceful. I think that I'm a very religious man. I'm Catholic myself, but even people who aren't religious can take away from grace. Grace is a biblical term, but also can be used, in the ordinary discourse by having, for example, having the grace to be mindful of other people. Try to understand that you cannot fathom what they're going through, but having the grace to not just get mad. Now, again, I'm guilty of having the Boston road rage. I still have down in Georgia all this time. I've been down here, but ultimately realizing that none of us are due north, meaning that I always describe people, honestly, a lot of time on your side of the aisle. I know it's more a sphere, but on your side of the aisle, but sometimes on my side of the aisle as well, that people act like their views are the source, due north, as I call it. So it's all of a sudden, imagine if I came at you and attacked you and gave all either implied or stated, or a little bit of both, that my views were the view. And by implication, or being straightforward, or both, that if you do not agree with everything I tell you, what I believe in, your beliefs are therefore null and void because you, by definition, don't have the view. And you can insert a lot of different terms there, but ultimately, none of it, they're all opinions. And I really tell people quickly that, I've put a lot of thought into this and I've thought about it in the last maybe 10, 15 years that I think most political differences is whether it's opinions, things you regurgitate. Now you're an informed person, but a lot of people are not. But a lot of it can boil down to a difference in a philosophical discourse or opinion. So on a spectrum, you can put most arguments and or topics on a spectrum of where does this person stand from a philosophical standpoint, whether they lean more towards being a collectivist or more tribalism. Now, I'm more tribalistic. I put in parentheticals next to tribalism, your kin, to your friends and family, of course, but really the individual. So tribalism, individual and said kin, friends and family. The other side of the spectrum being collectivism for think of more of the Three Musketeers, one for all for one type of mentality. Neither one's right or wrong. I would say that from a biological standpoint, even though I'm confident Catholic man, I do believe in biology and I do believe that in science, and I believe that our species are, what do we do when these go to hell? We are tribalistic. We always looked for the common denominator. And that's not saying that's right or wrong. Over time, now we realize that difference in skin color or height or other features, whether it's our own human race or another animal, to determine if they're predator or not or prey. We've come a long fucking way since then. So I think that, but we still have the tendency to go back to that inherently. But again, if, for example, if you're on a certain topic, whether it's, and I'm sure we'll get into it tonight, if you're more into, you believe more collectivism in terms of for healthcare, for example, if one believes healthcare is a right, access to not just access, but having it, that's more of a collectivist mentality because you want to do good by your fellow man and woman. Whereas a tribe, somebody's more tribalistic, but the individual would push back and say, like myself, and say, well, again, way more, we're generalizing, but a quick version would be, I don't want to pay for your health care. Whereas the other person would come by with their perspective of, well, that's a right. So if you're coming at it to me as healthcare is a right, and I'm coming to you saying, no, no, I don't agree with you there from a philosophical standpoint, excuse me, and I believe it is the right to access to it, then we're talking past each other, and beyond that, we're having different conversations when we both think we're talking the same topic, and we're not. So I think you can break things down, whether it's the biggest issues, abortion, gay marriage. I know it's been codified. Well, Supreme Court decision, Obergefell, June of 15, and nobody's going to go back on that one. But I would tell you that ultimately that's how I look at things, that knowing that if you are saying what the words coming out of your mouth or my mouth or saying one thing, or you're perceiving it a certain way, but you're not getting the full context because I'm not articulating the best way, because a lot of times I think the conversations, it would ruin language, as some famous comedians would say, but nobody's going to pause for 30 seconds or 15 minutes, 50 minutes to tell you, here's what I think about race relations, and this is why I think about this, or Black Lives Matter, anything. But people give you the cliff notes. They talk, fast. They don't pause side of the road and say, let me just rear off and just tell you this side quest about why I feel this way about a topic. They just tell you a couple of words, whether that's stand-in words for a movement or whatever the place is going to be. But ultimately, I think that when you realize that the other person might have no idea what you're talking about, to clarify with them, and then when you come, and then number one, start the conversation, be respectful during it, and then afterwards realize that it should be, keeping it civilized in a, whether it's up to a discussion, up to a debate, but never fighting. And once it gets to that threshold, you should stop. Now, again, I'm guilty, but still, it's turned 35 a couple of days ago, and if I recall, are you a little older than I am?
Yep, I was November 15th. So I'm
It's my
about a
dad.
little.
That's my dad's birthday. Hell,
Oh
it's a great
wow.
day. Yeah, my dad just turned. My dad, lifelong Democrat. He actually just retired at 67. Grew up in Somerville. My grandfather was a firefighter in Somerville, and then he moved to Woburn in the 80s.
Ah,
But yeah. But other than that, that's how I. So again, I'm Gabby, so
all right. Wow. Um, so let's talk about. It's interesting you say your father's a lifelong Democrat. Is he like, so he's still a Democrat at 67?
Yes. So as you know, and I'm sure people out there, if they're from the area, know, but um, outsiders probably don't understand this or know this, is that I jokingly tell people there's a lot of, I call them Cidadoisms or datoisms. Like I'll say things where, very, very repetitively, but one of the things I tell people a lot is that over the years, that back in the day, all the little ladies had like a stitching of JFK in the wall. Like he was not the second coming. I don't mean that blasphemously, but he was a very iconic figure, which is an understatement for not just Massachusetts politics, but for not just U.S. politics, but world politics. He was an imposing figure, coupled with the fact he's from Cape Cod. A lot of them say he's from Boston, Cape Cod guy. But so my whole family are Democrats. My cousin is the only one that was Republican. Growing up, my parents were more hippy dippy. I couldn't have super soakers as a kid. And so, but they always let me choose to be who I wanted to be. And that was very, very cool of them. My mother died a long time ago when I was 19, the freshman year of college, but she was really cool where, I used to use my dad's old suits. My dad's tall like you, 6'2", and I used to roll up I used to be an usher at the Catholic Church St. Barbara's down the street from me. I used to go there in my old dad's suits, and she was a short little teenage kid. And I did that because I really was into it, and they were very cool. I mean, everybody back home got, all the sacraments. Down here, there's more Baptist. So everybody back home, describe it as more culturally Catholic. Now, as it gets more diverse up there, but growing up 20, 30 years ago, most people were Catholic. It was majority, over the Protestant religion. South's the opposite. But yeah, really, everybody's Democratic in my family. To my knowledge, my mother was, my dad is. We talk about politics a lot. Actually, I remember very quickly that when I was working at the Spoke, I remember September and October of 2012 telling him how, after the debate where Romney did very well, Barack Obama did not. I remember telling the polls on RSCP, Real Clear Politics, back then, over 12 years ago, be out in Spoke down in Amherst Center, and telling him, hey, actually, Romney's up by a point. Now, we all know the famous 47% comment. He ended up getting like 47 and change percent of that vote, if I recall correctly.
Yep.
But yeah, it's just, so him and I were always been civil. I think that 16 changed a lot. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, my whole family, and I realized that I was the opposite of them. I remember actually at UMass, one day I realized when I was a sophomore, I thought I was an independent freshman year. And then sophomore year, I realized I was Republican. So I've been Republican for like half my life now.
That's very interesting because oftentimes, um, like teenagers tend to have the same like views or register to the same party that their parents or guardians are of. And there's a saying that says, if you're not a liberal when you're 20, you don't have a heart. If you're not a conservative when you're 40, you don't have a brain.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of people who are like very liberal in college, and then they realize that um, the world costs a lot more than they thought it did. So then they become like they start having the mindset like, oh, why should I have to be paying for this person to live or this person to have health care? Like it should be individualized. And then they become more conservative.
Yeah.
Um, I actually, it's interesting. My second guest I had, he actually went the opposite way. He was more conservative when he was like younger, and then has become more liberal. He's actually he lives up here in Mass, but he grew up in Florida, registered to vote down in Florida, and voted in Florida. So he's even though Florida's turned hardcore Republican, he's still a Democrat there.
Very good.
Um, but it's so it show that right there illustrates that like you can think on your own, like you can think outside the box and do additional research. Like I think it's similar to how like when I was growing up, like we were in fifth grade when George W. Bush took office,
Right. Yep. Very good.
and my parents the Iraq War, like my parents were not happy with Bush they being elected. They thought they still think that he was quote unquote elected because of the whole Florida recount and stuff. But generally, like my parents were always like anti-Bush. They're like Bush is doing this, Bush is doing that, like it's awful. So like I was very anti-Bush as well. But looking back, I still put Bush if I rank my lifetime presidents, like I we got um I'm not going to count H.W. Bush because I was
Oh, sure.
only like three. Well, we were
Yep.
only like three when he got voted out of office. So like um I'd still put Bush fourth out of my five lifetime presidents. I Trump still hasn't sold me yet, so Trump's fifth, and then Bush is fourth, and then I'd have like maybe
Biden's
Biden.
third.
What?
Biden's third.
Yeah, Biden's. I'll put Biden at
Fair
third,
enough.
and then
Fair enough. Fair enough.
um I'd put Clinton second, and I'd put Obama first. Clinton did better on the economy than Obama did, but like Obama was very like a lot of like he got a lot of revolutionary legislation through.
Yeah.
Um,
He also bombed the shit out of his drone strikes are infamous. That's something that
yeah,
his drone strikes are heavy. I mean, they never really the two things they didn't really report about Barack Obama. Again, I got nothing against the man. My father voted him twice, and I think great scholar. I think he's lost some prestige after his little charade in the fall, trying to be there for Kamala Harris, berating black men to vote for her. But regardless, he's still a statesman. I respect him. He was a former president. I will say though that the two things that went underrated in his or did not went underreported overwhelmingly was that he smoked cigarettes. I told my paralegal recently she's born 98, so she's 26, and
he was trying. I
like
remember in
he started pretty young.
2007.
Yeah, no, it's pretty. I mean, good. I respect that I say that jokingly that's a good
Yeah,
one they withheld. But the drone strikes, I mean, they were bad. I mean, holy shit! Like I mean, whoa! I mean, it's a war hawk right there. I mean, wow. And those
yeah.
again, maybe perhaps trying to be more, not to be skeptical. I'll try not to be. Perhaps it's because drones were a new-ish technology where it was pushed by a button. Now, again, we've had it for many decades, perhaps a century at this point in time, depending on the type of weaponry. But maybe because it was so impersonal that literally the epitome of impersonal warfare is just a drone, coming down. But there was a lot of those. But either way, but Clinton below Obama. Is it because the more the charisma? I know he said the policy reasons, but
I
because
mean,
you
maybe
saw
it's because I was
you were 18.
I because Obama was the first person I ever voted for. Like, and actually in the 2008 primary, that was my first time ever voting. My parents voted for Hillary. I voted for Obama because I thought Obama would push things to the limit more than Hillary did. But did you vote? Did you vote for McCain?
So in 2008, I never got, and it's on me because I was a dumb college kid. I didn't get my ballot sent over to Amherst. And
Oh,
so my first election was a special election in 2010. I voted for Scott Brown.
yes.
Scott Brown. And 2008, I remember, I mean, the thing about that's when the irony is that I've been wanting to be a politician for most of my life, and my parents, we didn't talk politics. My old man used to tell me as a kid, Alex, you don't ever talk about religion and politics with people. Never. Within 5-10 minutes of meeting motherfuckers, I would do it. Now it's a different world. I just turned 35. You're 35. It's you touched on it early on this when we were discussing this stuff and being this of this conversation that it is a different world, and everybody says that. But I used to talk about shit. I was telling my parent the other day, her name was Alexis, that I used to go before I was into politics. I was more into just concepts or just the issues at hand. I remember going to the YMCA in my hometown, 16 years old, 15 years old, working drive, and talking to the girls I knew about 2, 3 years older than me at the front desk about gay marriage and abortion. And like you could just talk to, I was more open then. I mean, my philosophy now is I won't bring things up, but I will finish the topic. You ask me my opinion, I'm going to tell it to you. If you don't like it, you go fuck yourself. Now I'm not going to sit there and belabor the point. But I used to just when we lived not even that long ago, early 20s, I felt comfortable telling anybody anything or bringing it up if somebody wanted to bring up a topic. Now you can't, and when I say you can't, it's sometimes not worth it unless you have people who are respectful. But majority of people that I deal with on the other side aren't the most graceful individuals. So like I ended up, I'm the tolerant one. I'm the one that has to, and again, that sounds it's like calling yourself classy, but very rarely are people classy. But I will tell you, this is the rare exception where, I'm an adopted biracial, I'm a multi-ethnic adopted biracial kid. Yeah, there we go. Multi-ethnic adopted biracial. Yeah. So, I'm half Mexican, look Italian. Not, my father's tall, I'm very lucky I was adopted, was not put in the welfare system or that system. So I was very lucky I didn't go, very, very blessed. I got adopted. But that said, it has changed my perspective. I've always had a unique perspective because I just didn't, I always felt kind of at odds with things. And, I was very lucky. I had a sister growing up. She's my parents' biological child. She's 9 months younger than us. She graduated UMass the year after us. But, so it was just, I always thought the world was a certain way. And then I realized when I was going to college, instead of getting more liberal, I got more, it just reaffirmed my beliefs. I'm like, okay, I didn't know about politics. Like, I'll give you an example. My dad in 2016 wanted to vote for Hillary, not because he knew her policies. It's because, in his own words, and I love him to death, he's a very, blue collar guy. It was, background of our country. But he said to me, just apolitical, Alex, I want her to win because then I could say that a husband and wife are both president. And there's a sweetness to that. It's not bogged down in what I imagine you and I have, respectful men, gentlemen. I imagine all the jadedness we have in ourselves, knowing that it's not that simple. That our system, either side's we're closer to a banana republic than we like to think we are. Now, that's not in terms of how many parties we have, but I mean the oligarchy class. Our problems are more class based than they are race based. I mean that's it, and that's an oversimplification, but I truly believe that. I mean, if you don't, look in the data. I mean, for any issue here, now again, an issue or problems perspective, what I might see as austerity, you might see as being problematic, right? So, but big picture, that's why I moved to Georgia. So, very quickly that 2014, I went in the Army for a little under a year. I discharged for honorable reasons, but didn't do much. It was 2014, they were kind of winding down, just like right when I started. But the military wasn't really expanding from what I was told. So summer of 2014, and I got out and didn't do much. Like I said, that's when I'll talk about it. But it's too late to apply to law school when I was 25 or 24, 2014. And then so I had to wait a whole 14 months for the law school the following year. But that's the reason I moved to Georgia. So way back in 2014, a year before Trump came down the golden steps in New York, I thought in my mind, I always knew that I could never get elected back home. I knew that I had to chart my life out. And as before, things were as tumultuous. I mean, we always had our biases. I mean, I tell people down here that I never thought about applying to the University of Georgia or Alabama because I always thought Southern people hated, Northern people. When I was going to law school, applying to law school down in the South, the one term I remember from anthropology, ethnocentric. Everybody was so fucking ethnocentric. They'd say, why do you want to go to law school down here? There's law schools in all of New England, Boston, and New York. Go down to Connecticut, you need to go to Rhode Island. Why the fuck would you go there? And they didn't understand that I just knew 11 years ago, plus that by the time the changing demographics, I knew this where I'd end up. That no matter what, I could never get elected back home. I could be the biggest rhino in the world. I could never get elected. So that's why I made a conscious decision to move down here. I didn't know a damn person. Didn't know anybody. So that's how I got down to Georgia. Well, the beginning of it anyway.
Yeah. So before we talk about your move to Georgia, let's talk about undergraduate at UMass Amherst, there were some really great history and poli sci professors, in my
Yes,
opinion. And I went in as a history major, but I was taking poli sci classes. I was actually in the Politics Today rap. Do you remember raps from freshman year?
I do. Yes.
I signed up. I was in the Politics Today rap
That
up
was
in
that was like a specific dorm where you all took similar classes. Do I have that right?
yeah, we were all on the same floor, and like we had a class at the bottom, like in the
Yes, yes, yes.
main like area of our residence hall. And
Which
I'm
hall was
actually
that?
I was in Webster up in Orchard Hill,
Mhm.
and I actually the professor from that class, he wasn't a full-time professor yet. He was in grad school at UMass to become a professor, but like by the like when you're in your like third or fourth year of your PhD, they give you your own class. Like there was all those we always had TAs in a lot of classes, but then some people that were able to get their own class. I had an ethics class second semester freshman year. I remember it was specifically I don't know it was in Grayson Hall up in O Hill, and for some reason the class said may only be taken for people who live in it might have been I think it was freshman only too, but like in Northeast, O Hill, or Central. I'm like, huh, that's interesting.
Hmm.
Um, because also remember, did you take college writing freshman year? Remember
Yes,
that?
and oh, you want to get into that topic?
Well, it's because of generally in college writing they had like people who lived near each other, like in the same college writing class. We did have like there was one guy from like I was in the O Hill Central area, so we had mostly O Hill and Central kids. There was one guy from down in Southwest though that they put in our class. So he came all the way from Southwest to our class, which was interesting. And
Yeah.
then, but yeah, there was college writing, which I remember there was one of the 5 units we had was like taking like a hot button political issue and like writing about it. And then there were um some really great poli sci professors. Like I know Professor Reed, I had her for
Yes, Laura Reed.
American, yep, American foreign policy.
I did. Yep, me too.
And I had her. She was also when I did an internship in Senator Timilty's office. I took a 1 credit class, so I wrote a paper about how Massachusetts could fix its problems with the T, and she supervised that, and she gave me.
That's cool.
Yeah, I got. She said I should be very proud of myself at the end because she gave me an A. And another one, Dean Robinson. Remember? Do you ever have him?
Yes, he was was he the Holyoke professor?
Actually,
Or
no,
was
that
he
was Vinny Ferraro.
Benny Ferraro? He looked like he got him for American Poly's first year, first class I ever took in undergrad, first semester freshman year. He looked like if Al Pacino and Santa Claus had a kid.
We're
Yeah,
in politics.
yeah. Well,
We
politics
were
101. Yeah.
Yeah, so we
Yeah.
we hadn't met yet, but we were in
No,
that
no shit. Yeah,
was it like it was I want to say it was like in the central area. Was it
yeah.
in
Right next to yeah, yes, and one
Herder Hall? Was it called? Is
yeah,
that
like 110 or something like that. I think. But
yeah.
I remember it was like this is like the bee's knees. This fucking guy. I don't know if it was me. I believe I went to I like to believe I went to a lot of classes first semester at least. I believe I'm gonna tell my kids that. But I don't remember him being there that often. I remember that's when it dawned on me that the TAs do all the bitch work, the TAs do all the writing or the grading, and he would show up and go, "Hey, what's going on?" I'm like, "That's a great job. That's what job I want. You know, shake babies, kiss hands type of thing." I said that intentionally, but so yeah, but I don't think he might have he taught what once twice a week, but I feel like looking back on it, he was either out a lot or not a lot, but it seemed like we didn't see him a lot. Maybe I don't know why it was, but I feel like it was a great gig because he was awesome, charismatic, funny. Maybe it was his first semester of college, just dealing with the because I don't know what your high school was like. Mine was just 1 through 7 periods, I believe. So we saw say we might switch on Tuesdays, but either way, it was. I just remember him being awesome and just not around. Now again, that's a memory of a night as an 18-year-old kid to me. It was half a lifetime ago, but he was cool. But again, I don't remember him being there that often. That could be my memory though.
Yeah, I remember him being there. I went to all of his lectures. I remember meeting a guy in the second semester after we had that class who said he never went to the lectures. He just went to the uh, the discussions on Friday, and he got an A in
Oh,
the class. Like he didn't need to go to the lectures. But I went to the lectures because I liked him. I liked Ferraro,
he was
Vinny,
very interesting.
watching Vinny, and I still have my notebook from my first semester freshman year of UMass. I've preserved it, and
Love it.
world
Love it.
politics, and I have my world politics notes I took in that class.
Wow.
And speaking of elections, you did win. I mean, you got elected A of our Delta Chi, UMass D Chi, and you were the
Attorney council.
IFC president.
Yep. Same
So
time.
yeah. And
Pretty
then
good.
it was only you ran for
Oh yeah.
student president. I voted for you your senior year, but then
Thank you. Oh, I needed a humble pie. I lost 3 out of 3 when I ran the Greek ticket for student SGA president, go for the trifecta, and I got royally my ass handed to me. But it was very humbling. I needed it. I was a little tad cocky then, and a little more than I needed to be, but it was very humbling. I call him my Eli Manning. Akshay Kapoor was, I think he's a doctor now, Dr. Kapoor. He went to UMass Medical School, right? But he was Theta Chi. He beat me for homecoming king, and then he beat me for student government president. I asked him to be my VP. I went with Grant. It was a Pikes forum president, and Jessica Saperstein, which was SDT, Sigma Delta Tau sorority. She was high up, and she was on panel too. And oh boy, what a disaster that fucking was. That was the same time as we hosted the RLC, which I planned a lot of that with Alex Chan, and Zach Duran took over for me. We became A, but boy, that was the weekend before. So like that week, then I remember I was an e-board for so long. I held every single position on the E board, except for 3. We had 10 total. Some were removed. I think at one point in time, there's social, scholarship, AMC, FED. Yeah, A. Yeah, so there was 10 in total. I was never B. Sorry, I was never C, D, or AMC. I was A, B, F twice. I was E, scholarship, recruitment, and social. So, and then very quickly, the year before, this guy named, I'm going to call him David Robertson. He was going to be student government president. And there's always going to be two parties. There's always like the outsiders and insiders, if you will. It wasn't left and right. But then a guy named Yevon and this
I know
fucking
Yevon. He was in that ethics class. Yevon Rowe.
I stupidly, it was Yevon versus David Robinson, and then Nate Lamb was the incoming president of the Republican Party club, excuse me. And he said, "I get the vote, Cidado," and I'm like, "Yeah, give me some Greek votes." I bet I got him. I don't know this to be true, but I bet I got him at least 100, 200 votes. And I ended up splitting the vote with Dave Robinson. I gave Dave Robinson my word at the student government, or sorry, the student, like the first week of school, you like have that RSO, I think it's called, where all the you could join all the clubs and shit at the student union. So I told Dave I was going to vote I was going to back him in January of 2010, the year before I ran. And I did, to my word, I told him, "Hey man, I'm just going to back Nate Lamb." And he was upset, but he was like, "Hey man, I appreciate that. I was going to, I felt like a man, because our agreement was he backed me the following year. Well, I fucked up and I stupidly listened to Nate, a grown man, my fault. I ended up, not to be egotistical, but my couple hundred votes from the when I was IFC president then, student government president, been IFC 3 times, COM as a freshman, sophomore, standards like F, and then I was president, and nobody ran against me because Andy Dawson, rest in peace. I remember his brother Zach Dawson. He was an A. They were Phi Kappa Phi's. So Andy Dawson was a good guy. He was a grade below us, but they were Pi Caps, but his brother was in a wheelchair. He died. Great guy. He died 3 years after, probably 2015 he died. And Andy was IFC president before me. I think he made his brother. Well, so there was Andy Dawson. So Zach Dawson is the younger one. Andy was the one in the wheelchair. You definitely saw him around. He was really, he had a lot of health issues, but he was a very good friend of mine. And long story short, nobody wanted the IFC. Everybody thought it was a joke. I helped bring it back, and I would have won if I stayed with Dave, because what ended up happening was, you can tell I'm not salty about it at all. I split the vote, so Yevon won. Nate got in third. Dave lost by like 150 votes, 100 votes. No, not even. I think it was like sub 100, like 75, 90, somewhere under 100, 75 to 100 votes. I definitely got those votes. And had I not gone back on my word, well, I say not back on my word, let me be clear. I told him I was going to do something, and then I said to him, "Hey man, I'm sorry, I can't do this anymore." But either way, had I stuck with my original assessment situation, Dave would have won, and I would have probably won the next year. But I fucked up. So Nate lost. Nate became my campaign chair late. He didn't want to do it for late, till like fucking like January. Meet with Yevon, like grovel a little bit, and because I find out, because I approach Akshay, because that was the first year we're gonna have VP. It was gonna be the trustee was gonna be on the board of trustees, president. It's the first year for VP. So I approached Akshay Kapoor. I was like, hey man, you want me by VP? Because Grant reached out to me, and he was a Pike president. He was when he was a pledge, or rather before the pledge process, he was going to be either Delta Chi or Pike, and Grant was like then became sophomore president of Pike with like 70 members. It's a big deal. Sophomore president there, two
Wow.
and a half times.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Grant was 6'4", very charismatic, deep voice, very into, really smart. And I remember he got like this internship at like, I think at Microsoft is a year behind us. He got an internship with like Microsoft out in like Washington, Seattle, or something like that. And I think he told me he made like 18 G's that summer, 12 to 18 G's. Summer going to senior year of college. Like that's a lot of fucking money, man. So he was really smart into computers, shit like that. But he approached me end of our junior year, to run for as my trustee. And I'm like, let's go. And I was on student government I was a senator for a couple of years. I didn't do much. But they didn't like me. I thought they were a bunch of fucking nerds, and like they're like, fuck this guy. Because what I was gonna do, if I had won, I was gonna put a picture of Abe Lincoln in the wall with the thing of JD in my desk. And then what really ramped things up was that February, so a month before the election, there was talks about us getting the Phi Sig House, and there was talks about us guys renting the Phi Sig House.
Yep. I remember that.
Off, but Zach Durant and I talked about getting a golf cart. So if I had won the election and we got that house, my life would have peaked. I would have been fat and happy, fine. And but it didn't, thankfully, and didn't get the golf cart. I know that would be legal or not, but that was a dream. Like basically, my life would have been like Van Wilder. That's how a fatter shorter Van Wilder is how I see my life being. But it didn't go that way, and yeah, many years later, I still remember my mistakes and mishaps back then. I will say that my proudest thing, I'll get off this topic, but the funniest part of the election was we had this, she was salty, not that it matters, it's descriptors for me, so I remember things. We had this VP, or there was a Southeast Asian woman, I believe she was. I couldn't tell you what not that it matters, just to jog your memory. She was very controversial. I can't remember, she wasn't a teaching student, she was higher than that, but like, she pissed a lot of people off in the school, and a lot of Greek people off. And I forget what her name was, but when we were doing debates, I got to call her. She was in the student unit, and she was like third, fourth row back. And like I talk a lot better. I still talk fast. Back then, I still talk way too fast. But my question was about what I stood for, and I get like an emphatic answer. I remember shitting on her, like, and how she kind of was doing stupid shit for the school. And I was like, and I was staring her down at 21 years old, being like, yeah, I just don't think that what's happened to school here is just wrong. It's cost my check. Everyone makes fun of me. Like I caricature. I am a caricature, but that was quite funny. But I learned a lot from that. But yeah, I mean, Akshay Kapoor was my Eli Manning. Stole 2 Super Bowls from me. Stole them. It's okay. I bounced back. But yeah, that was elections right there.
I mean, it's supposed to show you that it's hard to get elected to anything. I mean, in an organization, in on campus, or even in small towns. I mean, I like, so that's something I wish I had done more of when I was like undergrad, because I was very into politics. Like I was in before I became DCI, I was in the history club. I was
You were in an honors fraternity.
What?
Weren't you in
No, I wasn't in the honors fraternity.
Oh, okay. Matt Lowe. I'm thinking Matt Lowe.
Yeah, Matt Lowe.
Yeah. Nice girlfriend was in Nikki. Oh, yeah. He was tough.
Yes. And then when I was an undergrad in DCI, I was Brotherhood chairman, chartering chairman, IFC rep, and then scholarship officer. And then my last when I was scholarship officer, that's when it was an e-board position.
Yes, sir.
And then I also won the 2 big, like, real meaningful awards in the fraternity. I won most improved AM in fall 10, and then I won Big Brother of the Fall in fall 11. So it's like, I mean, I also ran for some other stuff and didn't win. But what I say to myself is, it's it's hard to win anything. And 2, I did win some stuff, and like the 2 the two most important awards that I won undergrad and DKI are Most Improved AM and Big Brother of the Fall.
I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, my last election, which was so embarrassing. I remember I ran, I think for E, the spring of no, it was yeah, somebody was leaving. I forget who it was, but it was like me, Julian, and somebody else. I'm not shitting on them, but like I remember I didn't get past the second. I didn't get past the primary. Like I'm thinking to myself, you fuckers. Like I've been here fucking. This is my ninth. I've been here the entire time this fraternity's been here, and like I said, I'm gonna jump back on board, and you fuckers don't want to give it to me. So I was a little entitled. I was a little ashamed. I was really shocked. But I will tell you that I had a couple of guys come out to me last year, like spring of 13, and tell me that oh, was it you graduate? Were you E last semester? Were you E?
I was scholarship.
You were scholarship. Okay. But yeah, so what ended up happening is I had a brother come up to me at the I forget his name, but so he got probably got initiated probably like the fall of 12 after you graduated.
It
So
must have been either
I
Gage or I know Gage
wasn't
Fuller.
Gage. It was it might have been Seth Meldon. It might have been him.
Seth was spring 12.
Spring 12. Okay, so it could have been one of the last
Yeah.
semesters. But what ended up happening is he goes, brother, I thought you were just like I saw him in the library. We talked about stuff, and he's like, I thought you were just like a brother in the back of the room. I'm like, motherfucker, I'm Abe Lincoln to this fraternity. That's how I saw myself. Troy, then Spiff came in, another year of Troy when you were at an AM, and then thankfully, I got involved, and I had that was the annoying part. I had Daryl, a former D, Troy and Spiff, who were 2 years older than I am. We're both founding fathers and presidents, who were like more mentors to me because they were 2 years older than I was. We were breathed out my fucking neck because they were both, if you believe it, they were both. All three of them were active spring of 12, my first semester as the whole year. I'm sorry, because they did a 50 year. So that one semester, spring of 11, all three were there, and they all had fucking points. I'm boys with Spiff. I saw Spiff in Miami, Fort Lauderdale for the convention back in August, and Daryl I just saw for the first time in Buckhead, but right next to where I live last year. I hadn't seen him since his wedding in 10 years ago. We're all cool. I haven't spoken to Troy in a long time. I'm sure we're okay, but I haven't spoken to him since almost 10 years. But long story short, I had them all fucking second guessing me, and it's just like, guys, I know what I'm fucking doing. Y'all thought too small, and that's how we got we got that house because A Pie, who I was boys with, was like, hey, we're moving to the bigger house, and I'm like, boom, I got Zip in the fucking line, and it's March of 2011, and people are like, oh, Zip did. I don't give a fuck who did it. I go, point of clarification, I'm the one who got that information, but Zip again, fuck the credit part of it. We finally, that we've looked at the house 3 times in a row. Only you and I will care about this. After our freshman year, Spiff or Troy was the man, and they decided no to the house. They looked at Reggie and they said, okay, we all decided let's try to go get all live in a dorm room, same level in like JQA or something like that. I haven't said that in a long time, but it didn't happen. So we looked at the house one time for our sophomore year. Going to junior year, I lived in North. You were by the end of sophomore year. You became a brother. Yeah, you were spring 10, right?
That was fall 10.
Fall 10.
I
Okay,
started, I started trying to join. It was spring 10 when I decided I wanted to do more at UMass, and I was looking at different fraternities, and I met Julian in spring 10, but I just missed Rush, and I just missed being a Gamma, but I stayed in touch with Julian, and then fall 10, I got my bid, and the rest.
No, again, you were one of the greats. But again, just to finish it up, they looked at the house again. Junior year said no. Troy, I want to go live up in Brandywine. I'm like, you guys fucking idiots. You want to get bigger? You get the house. I don't give a fuck what it looks like. Lower yourself down. But I don't think Troy. I don't know if you ever saw his house. His parents very wealthy. I don't think he could lower himself to that piece of shit. So we looked at it twice. Then the third time, your second semester, yes, spring of 11. I was at the gym. I was working out and at the college gym at UMass, and was it not Bowdoin? What was the new one called? The Rec Center? Yeah, the Rec Center. And I get a call, or I either run into somebody or I get a call. I might have ran into the guy. Hey, positive. Yeah, today we're moving up to where ZPT used to live, a couple houses up. And I'm like, and that that you get in the ship promptly, getting the horse Zip, and then we end up getting the house, the same house we looked at the third time. Now I didn't know that because after freshman year I didn't. But yeah, man. And then my last year, they didn't want to live there anymore, and I was done. I was just burnt out. So they moved across. They didn't have a house, and they got the. They're still there. I actually talked to. I ran into a. I'm I've not been to UMass since May 4th of 2014. It's been almost 11 years. A long time, a long time. But I ran into the president at a convention, and actually he had me speak to like 15 guys. Might be the pledge class. I can't remember. Back in like October or November, I did like a 2 hour Zoom. Just asked they could. I let them ask them whatever the fuck they wanted, the good, the bad, the ugly. I just went on a roll. So it was cool talking to them. And one kid I mentored a little bit by just had like a long conversation with him, a couple hours about applying school, going to law school, things like that. But yeah, man. I mean, we were very blessed. I mean, besides a couple of stupid things, I mean, we didn't haze, we didn't do anything wrong. I mean, I think we were very lucky. I really don't like how the world's going with fraternity life. It's going to eventually get extinguished. I don't know if you just saw when it came out. So they just had the RLAs here, no more RLCs, the RLAs, and the one here down the road from me. And because of the lawsuit, because it was a kid who died at VCU or something like that. So the part of the settlement was no more big brothers. It's mentors now. That's
Oh,
part of the lawsuit. So now it's all that shit's getting all the no. Eventually, what's going to end up happening is they're going to have to go underground like they started, and is nobody going to be able to insure them anymore eventually. And the con is you won't be able to book rooms, but the way things are going, man, it's not worth it. In my opinion, just go underground.
and it's sad that Greek life is going that way in America. Like people don't realize like fraternities are getting a bad rep because there's all these stories of of people of like intense hazing or kids dying because they drank too much alcohol or sexual assaults. Like and like I'm proud to say like UMass DCI did none of that, and as far as I know, has done none of that. And
I was there for initiation.
yeah,
Oh, no,
and it's like we actually like grew so much like I mean it's challenging, but it's like studying for the bar kind of challenge. Like you bring out some inner demons, like you gotta learn all about Dekai history and everything, and like
yes,
and
that's right.
build all those paddles. So it's a challenge, but not once do you have to like take off your clothes or drink an entire 30 rack.
No,
And
we didn't believe in demeaning people.
yeah, and it's like because I also another thing about Delta Chi is I wanted to join a fraternity, and then when I got my bid from you guys, I was so excited. And then I learned that when I started learning the history of Dekai, I knew that God in the universe had guided me to the correct fraternity, because that's when I started learning about how Delta Chi was the first fraternity to abolish Hell
No,
Week in 1929, and like in 1954 we desegregated our fraternity, and this was before a lot of the major civil rights
yes,
events happened.
yes.
And so like D Chi has always been ahead of the curve,
Mhm.
and the fact that we were like based on that we're based on law, and then being a big civil rights and human rights activist, like I knew I had found the right place, and that's
Absolutely.
why I'm so glad that I joined Delta Chi and no other fraternity.
No, man. I mean, you were always fucking cool. I mean, unfortunately, I won't say names, but I'm not as close with people as I used to be. It's so is life, moving away, and you know, you, sometimes you fail other people. Mean to. We're all only human. But some of the best times of my life. I mean, I got lucky because when I went to law school at 25, a little older, everybody else was like 21, 22, 23, a couple years older. I got to go back and live through it. Now I went to a small private school. Mercer was a small Baptist school in Macon, Georgia, middle of. I went. Mind you, I'd never been there before, so I drove straight. I left at 12:30 a.m. I was Gardens Galaxy with my dad. Said goodbye to him, Beverly. He's living up there at the time. He's a caretaker in a mansion on the ocean. And I was living with my buddy's parents. Was a manager at Sherwin-Williams, just to put the money aside to go to school again. And I left his home, my hometown, Woburn at 12:30 in the morning, and I only stopped 3 times for gas. I put all my shit in my car that night, that day, packed, said goodbye to my dad, my family. And I told them I'm never coming back. And I've always been a man of my word. I pride myself on that. But I told them all, I'll come to visit, but I'm not coming. I mean, I came for the breaks and stuff like that. But I'm going to go down there. I'm going to people I don't fucking know. I talk fast and everybody back home. These people are gonna be like, who the fuck is this sped? Watch my language, but just who's this knucklehead right here? I don't know anybody down there. I got no money. I some money from working and things like that, but from humble origins. So, by the time I'd worked and paid rent and all that stuff, and put money aside for the bar for just books and just living, as a student again for 3 years, 3.5 years, um, I told them I was not returning, and some people didn't believe me, which is kind of funny. I didn't see it till that January I got back, but I drove 18 hours straight. I stopped 3 times for gas. One time at 4:30 in the morning in Jersey, got gas somewhere near Baltimore around 9, maybe 10, because I could go about 330 miles in my tank. And one time in the Carolinas. But I was struck by when I got to the Carolinas, it was like stay on 95 for 500 miles because it was 1,000. So I got the same day, Tom Brady's birthday, August 3rd. I got a coincidence I didn't know at the time. School started about the 15th, 16th, about 2 weeks before, but it was a Monday, and I got here. I left the same 12:30 a.m. Got here at 6:30 p.m. It was just shy of 1,100 miles, and my emotions were because I was thinking my whole life over what I'm going to do. I go, there's no going back. I told myself if I fail, no, fuck that. I want to find a way. I couldn't even think, but the goal was just to go down there, acclimate, make friends again. And it's not easy. I wasn't 35, but I was 25, and it's not easy to do. School makes it easier, but I was relatively young then. Still, but as you get older, we both know it's harder to make friends or long-standing friendships. I feel like friendships are forged through fires. Through in the metaphor, fire being conflict or closer. Whether it's fraternity life's a good example, or school and fraternity life, because you and I may have never met. We might have a couple drinks, but we were forged in that fire of friendship. It kind of accelerates it because you're condensed. You're not living next to each other. So real life, that doesn't really happen. But at any rate, I moved down here, and I told myself I'd go to law school, pass the bar, figure out what the fuck I want to do, and make them like me, and then make them elect me one day. And 2/3 of the way there now, but that's how it was going to be. So yeah.
Nice. And so before we start talking about your specific experience, my quick funny story. My aunt is a lawyer. She started out after she passed the bar, she started out as a prosecutor and then switched over to criminal defense, and then she's also done a lot of civil cases as well. But for most of her career, she's done criminal defense and civil. She went to Washington and Lee
Yeah, that's cool.
University, and we were even mentioning like how I'd like to ask your take on this in a little bit about how a lot of Confederate monuments and like are coming down, and a lot of schools are being renamed from like Confederate names to like so like really civil rights icons, or like people who fought for slavery abolition. Like the names are being changed. But funny story is when my aunt was in law school, she was like, I don't know if they were dating, but she was talking to a guy, and he was from the South, and they were both in law school together. And she asked him if he would like to come up to see Boston with her, and she would show her Boston. She grew up actually out in the Berkshires, but she asked if he wanted to go to Boston, and then he was a hardcore Southerner. He said to her, "I ain't coming to Boston without my troops."
Shit, man, that's fucking funny. Yeah, it's a little
Yeah.
different down here. There are pros and cons. That is fucking funny. But I will tell you that I was a prosecutor for the first 3 years of my career, and I've been doing divorce work since then. I take some criminal cases, but primarily custody cases now, and pays the bills. But prosecution was great experience. But I will tell you that you know I witnessed that firsthand. So when I was at law school, I by chance got a job as a prosecutor, assistant district attorney in Athens, Clark County. So Athens, Georgia is where the University of Georgia is. So I lived and prosecuted in that town in Athens. Now I'm actually an Alabama fan. Roll Tide. I don't. I my best friend and godfather's daughter. He went to Alabama for a year, then went to Georgia. It's too expensive, but he went there, and I lived with him the last 2 years of law school. So back home, I tell people we were great, at least at the time, still do kind of. Our pro teams are great. College teams suck. Besides the Frozen Four, right? Here it's the opposite. So it's wild seeing everybody go to 10 different, 30 different, 10, 20, 30 different undergrads, but everyone's wearing Georgia shit. It didn't make sense to me. But it's the same as us wearing Patriots gear. None of us play for the Patriots, but college, it's odd seeing, like, you and I wouldn't rep BC gear. The fuck out of my, no, I mean, middle school, my friends used to wear the colors, but like, you don't wear BU shit. You and I went to UMass. That we're the Minutemen. So it was odd seeing everybody, going to Kennesaw, Georgia Southern, this school, that school, and all of a sudden they're all wearing Georgia shit. It's like, that's fucking weird. And I knew why. It was just an odd cultural thing, but it's no different than us wearing Patriot shit, Celtic shit. But so I left the district attorney's office because the DA got elected in 2020 was not qualified. Thankfully, she just got removed. She had never tried a case. Her name was Deborah Gonzalez. I actually spoke out against her in the news a couple years ago down here. She got elected because of her color. She's a Puerto Rican woman. That's the only. So I mean, Athens is like not as bad, not as super liberal as Amherst, but it's close. They elected her. My interns had more courtroom experience. She never tried a case. She beat out two of my mentors because the great Ken Malden, who was more, they call him Dixiecrats. So he was a Southern man, very religious, but still a Democrat. Didn't like Trump. It's funny because you heard his twang. That's why we shouldn't assume things about people. If you heard the great Ken Malden, he was DA for 20 years from the year 2000 until he retired a little early in 2019. In his fifth term, he was a great man, and he did a lot of civil rights for, he was a civil rights activist in the sense that he helped a lot of this stuff. Even though this was the 90s and the 2000s, it was still a different world in Georgia. So from my understanding, he did a lot of great things. So I worked with him, as a low prosecutor for a year or two. He left, so Deborah ended up winning, and I'm like, fuck this. She wanted to, now again, I think marijuana should be legalized, but still illegal in the state of Georgia. So she had this manifesto day one on January 1st, 2021. Yeah. Election was November 2020. She had this manifesto saying, we're not going to criminalize marijuana, these things, and all these different things. Like, you're an elected official. You can't go against your conscience. You can think it, but you should not put it in writing, or somebody should advise against putting in fucking writing. I'm not going to blanket these crimes, whether it's marijuana possession or murder. Now there's a grand canyon between those two crimes, but both are crimes in the state under Georgia law, so in federal law. So that's the thing, is that she did that. So in March of 21, I left and I joined my best friend Josh. He said, "Hey, why don't you just divorce work?" I'm like, "Sure, why not?" Because the thing about law school is you get one degree. You don't specialize in anything. I took one family law class. Law is like two spheres of the brain: criminal, civil litigation, criminal law. And the overlap in the middle is procedure. There's criminal and civil procedure, but courtroom. I mean, really, that's it. I knew nothing about civil litigation. I thought I was going to be a criminal attorney forever. So until I became a politician. So I left that office in March because I couldn't take it, because she was just, now that office, I don't know if you remember not the term writ of mandamus. A writ of mandamus is when you file a writ to get a judge to compel a state actor or elected official to do their obligations as their position. So I think it was like that way back in like Madison. I think it was Madison versus Maryland, or Maryland versus it was a case where, writ of mandamus was against a high ranking official. But anyway, there was a writ of mandamus against her because she was not, she was losing cases left and right, man. There were these statute of limitations were running. We had 17 prosecutors in that office. Within a year or two, she had two. Not because of COVID. We started during COVID, right? She got elected, end of 20. So, the big first year was out of the way. Nobody wanted to be there because it was a joke. And so if you look at Deborah Gonzalez on down here, you can see me on the TVs, but also you can see all the shit that she fucked up. Rape cases that were, small things. Like I had a colleague who fucked up. It's called. So do you know what Brady evidence is?
What's that?
You know what Brady evidence is?
Brady
evidence. Yeah. So Brady was a famous case, like all of them are. That you have to, if I'm the state or a federal prosecutor, I have to give you all the evidence I have that could be in your client's favor. And if you don't hand it over, it's called a Brady violation. So if I have a piece of evidence that could potentially show that your client's innocent, I have to turn it over. The state or the government has to. It's called Brady. So if you don't, it's one of those basic things you find as a prosecutor is if there's anything that's exculpatory evidence. It's the term, exculpatory evidence. So anything I have, you ever see My Cousin Vinny?
My Cousin Vinny. I
Yeah.
know of it. I have not seen it. I got to watch that though.
So he thinks he's a big hotshot. He goes, "Oh, I just got the state to give me everything I need." And his wife, Marissa Tomei, is like, "Yeah, they're supposed to do that." So there was a rape case of not to get into that type of stuff, but there's a rape case of during homecoming in 2018 or something like that. And at trial, Robert Schollmeyer, this is all, it's not, we're not committing defamation or slander out here. This is fact. This is all documented. he had been a career politician, sorry, a career prosecutor in like Wisconsin or something like that. Came to Georgia under the former DA of Fulton County, investigating cops, which I'm not the biggest fan of that. But anyway, he came to my office. Robert Schulmeyer did and then he got the case. I was only with him for a few months because Deborah took over in January. I left in March, but he ended up getting that case in the middle of trial. Middle of trial is going against a man named Mo Wiltshire. Big old. What do you think of a Southern good old boy in a respectful way? He's like 6'4", your height, fucking 300 pounds, and he has a great twang to him. Very intelligent man. In the middle of the trial, the victim's on the stand, and it finally comes out that between the night of say Saturday night, Friday night, the intercourse happened, and when she was tested, she had slept with somebody else. So. How do you know what the rape kit is about? That was 3 years before this happened. So I leave the DA's office in the early 21. This case is, I think, tried fall of 21. So it comes on the stand. The judge Stevens, my old judge, Mo was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. So they sent out the jury, and long story short, that case was dismissed with prejudice because Robert Schomeyer committed a Brady violation. The middle of trial, the first time the fucking defense is hearing that his client had sex with somebody between the alleged episode of rape and the testing at the hospital. That's the first time I heard a trial in front of the jury. So it's very rare when, without prejudice, say I file for divorce, I'm not married. Without prejudice means I can bring it again. With prejudice means you cannot. So what ended up happening is that case was thrown out, and why justice was not brought forward was he a rapist? First of all, his character is destroyed, irrespective of now this guy, nobody will ever know his justice was ever performed because, again, did he rape her? If he didn't, well, now he's not guilty. But that's gonna, if you're considered as a man, we both know this. If you're deemed a rapist, you're done. You're not just canceled, motherfucker. You're eviscerated with an E, capital E, right? So you never. No, that happened to other cases where people were getting statute of limitations were running on hundreds of misdemeanors in the other county. She lost all these murder cases. So it would finally, Kalki Yamakincelli, he ended up winning. He beat her finally in January. But even the liberal people, they were trying to get her out of office because, again, for every extreme on the other side is one on my side. I know there are probably people who get elected for DA. I actually know this. I know that there are people who got elected because we still have partisan elections. I'm sure you guys do too. The judges used to be; they're not anymore. But in my opinion, district attorney's office should be nonpartisan elections. But they are partisan elections.
Like, for example, the district attorney elections in Massachusetts are elected by the people, and it's my aunt actually ran. She ran for DA in 2006 against this guy who was like throwing the book at people for like small marijuana charges, and so she wanted to change that, but and then she lost, but then marijuana laws changed in Massachusetts, and there's also a lot of other criminal justice acts were passed. For example, there used to be a law in Massachusetts that said if you were sold drugs within 1,000 feet of a school zone, there was a mandatory minimum sentence. But they and most of the DAs were using discretion on it, but like this DA in Berkshire County was like charging people for selling selling marijuana in a parking lot that was like 950 feet away from a school zone. Like, that's not in the summertime to a 33-year-old Puerto Rican. Like, no, the law, it was the way the law was written. It was supposed to be a mandatory minimum sentence if you walked up to kids and offered them drugs.
Yes.
So my aunt had a client. She actually got a not guilty verdict because she argued the entrapment defense, and it was a clear entrapment defense. But my aunt was arguing that one, we shouldn't be like trying to ruin people's lives because if they're not truly true drug dealers, and two, it's like it costs $40,000 a year to put someone in the county jail for a year, and like it's a waste of the DA's office to go after such petty crimes. But there's other stuff that I think the reason why she lost the case was because Pittsfield and North Adams. Have you been to the Berkshires?
No, I mean, not in a long time. I've driven through them when I was a kid, and I've been there back in college, but not since then.
like, because I remember, Dan Morgan is from the
Yes.
Berkshires. And I
Yeah.
remember talking to Dan Morgan about this, and he's like, and Dan Morgan was like, well, I mean, there's just so many drugs in Pittsfield. Like, like,
I'm surprised he said that. He was Mr. I thought he was. I'm surprised he said that. I thought he'd be more, not not in a bad way. Just I'm surprised he was. I'm surprised he was like, dude, whatever, man, fuck it. Like he was like very chill guy. I'm surprised that was his
I
answer.
mean, he was a chill guy, but like,
Yeah.
when I was saying that the DA was too harsh in Berkshire County, he's like,
Okay.
well, Pittsfield, there's a lot of drugs, and
Okay.
like,
Oh,
you really
gotcha. Yeah.
gotta,
Okay.
yeah, he's like, there's a lot of drugs in Pittsfield. Like, there's just it's just the area needs to be cleaned up. But
Gotcha. Yeah,
um,
smart guy.
then in Massachusetts changed the law though where a prosecutor could only bring in the mandatory minimum school zone charge if it was within 100 feet of a school zone, which was much more realistic and
Yeah.
reasonable. And I mean, there's been a lot of Massachusetts criminal justice reforms, like um, 17-year-olds used to be tried as adults, but then they raised it to 18, which
Yeah.
is,
That's
I mean,
interesting.
18, you're not really an adult till you're 18, so you shouldn't be in adult court when you're 17. And I worked in DYS actually for 14 months, and we had some 18, actually a lot of 18-year-olds. Some of them were like they were they were facing charges from stuff they did when they were like 17, but then got like charged with something else when they were 18. And then we also had some first time people in DYS who were 18. Um, so it's like, I mean, even at 18, I was happy to see that they're still, because like the Patriots, as an organization, has done a lot of work for juvenile justice. Like, do you know Bill Belichick has actually gone into like DYS facilities and like talked to kids?
Didn't know that.
And Devin McCourty has done a lot of work on this.
Yeah.
And I
Heard
saw,
that.
I think it was Devin McCourty, like was sharing one of his many juvenile justice th- um, uh, statements, and he said, you know, a kid doesn't instantly mature just because they turn 18. Like, so that's why you got to like kind of treat, even in when it comes to like detaining a youth for if they're accused of a crime, like they should be in the juvenile facility, not the adult facility. And
Yeah.
um, so there's been a lot of good change in Massachusetts. And then in 2018, my aunt ran for DA again. This time it was against one of the top assistant district attorneys in Berkshire County, who was actually the interim DA. And then she was running, and then when she was running, my aunt wanted to actually set up a youth center, not a DYS facility, but like a youth center where like kids who had run away from home or like were having a lot of issues could just come to and like live in. And so she wanted to set that up as the DA. But then this woman, Andrea Harrington, who had only tried like one case, like really did not know that much about prosecution. She ran for DA, but she was running like uh, she wants she wanted to serve as the DA, so it would be like a stepping stone to like
Yes.
being a
That's what
congresswoman.
Deborah did. That's what Deborah did.
Yeah, and she ended up Andrea Harrington ended up winning, and my aunt said she really did, like she just did not know what she was doing. And she ended up losing the primary in 22 to a seasoned lawyer. And now that seasoned lawyer is the DA in Berkshire County. But it's just like Andrea Harrington was treating this position like it's a stepping stone to like a higher political office. Like
Yep.
she's running as a politician, but like that's not really what the position, like, you know, um,
It shouldn't
DAs
be.
aren't supposed to be politicians. They're
No.
supposed to be prosecutors.
And that's the thing. So what Deborah did was, so Deborah lost. She was in the state. She was in the state house here, state politics here as a representative for that area. She lost to a man named Houston Gaines, who was only like 30. He might have been 28 at the time. I was 30 at the time. He might have been 28, and so it got in her head. The judges, my old judge, has been a judge since 1991. He's been a judge almost the entire time we've been alive. His staff attorney said you should run, and we thought it was a fucking joke. Well, she ended up. It's a long story. She got through the powers that be, beat a federal lawsuit. She ended up winning, but she ruined the office. And Um, I tell you that because that's what she was doing. She was looking at that. I mean, she ran on global warming. She ran on prisons. There are no fucking prisons up there. So Georgia's weird where I think you guys have like 14 counties or something like that. Georgia's a bigger state, but we have tiny little counties. We have 159 counties. We have 59 judicial districts. I think 49 district attorneys. So yeah, so we have 150 random, but like your counties are bigger than ours are. But it's a bigger state here. But 150 so 159 counties comprise 59 judicial districts. Some are one county, some are like 8 or 9. But there were no prisons there. So when you run all this bullshit, you know, in all this nonsense, like for perspective, Lincoln Riley. So Judge Haggard. So when I was in the other county, my first year, so I 1 year I did the other county. Second year I was juvenile prosecutor. So we can touch base on what you said a second ago because I did juvenile work for about 13 to 14 months.
This is
And
in Athens, you said?
yes. So Athens, Clark County, in Oconee are the same. It's the Western Judicial Circuit. So my first year of law school, I was in Oconee, more Republican county, and I did mostly misdemeanors there. I did a little bit of everything, felonies as well. And then they brought me back to the main courthouse my second year, and nobody wanted the juvenile job. So it's funny because I tell people that now, like, oh, it's amazing. Nobody wanted the fucking job at the time, but it's a lot of times in life, the opportunities where nobody else wants it are some of the best ones, right? So I did juvenile work for 14 months, prosecuting felonies and misdemeanors that children committed crimes at the ages of legally children cannot commit crimes, but from the ages of 12 to 17, because 17 is still the age of majority in Georgia for criminal purposes. But I dealt with everything there. But anyway, what I was saying is Judge Haggard was just in the news because he's the one did the Lincoln Riley trial. So Deborah was so bad. Deborah's been calling in. PAC is the prosecuting attorney's council. So it's the head entity, all our lawyers or prosecutors in Georgia. So I call them cavalry. So she didn't try that fucking case. Nobody in her office tried that case. It was a bench trial 3 or 4 months ago where Lincoln Riley, that illegal immigrant who came here from South America, raped and killed Lincoln Riley, the girl, the nursing student. You familiar with that case?
Yep, and that's
Yeah.
the Lincoln Riley Act.
Yes. So that was February last year. Judge Haggard, and I used to be in front of him, Coney is a great man. He did they requested a bench trial, which is silly, but I guess, I know why they did it, but it's not going to change anybody's minds. But he ended up, this ties into the death penalty too. But a couple of things. She should have brought the death penalty. I'm against it for religious reasons, but you have to, if there's no death penalty, again, we can all argue the merits of should a state have it or not, but it's on the books. And if that case did not meet the criteria for a death penalty case, but she did not want to do it because in so many words, my understanding is that she thought it would look bad. It would, if they put forth the death penalty for this man. My understanding is, and again, I'm paraphrasing here, so hear me out. My understanding is she didn't want to bring it forward because it might make minorities, specifically, people like my old ancestors, people like that, people of color, look bad. It's like, well, lady, you should not give preferential fucking treatment to anybody for the color of your skin. That's called racism. And no. I mean, if the whitest person in the world, I'm not going to throw somebody's name out there, or the blackest person, or anything in between, if they raped and fucking murdered a girl, allegedly at the time, now been adjudicated guilty, that should be a death penalty case. That's why the AG here was bullshit angry. And there's a lot of blah blah blah. They can't overturn it. The district attorney, at least in Georgia, like most states, they have full discretion there, and she should have brought it, but she did not. So she didn't bring it, and then PAC came down to try her cases. So when I left the DA's office, I had a attempted murder case that PAC had to come down. So PAC sent in the super lawyers, super prosecutors. They have been for the last 4 years to do her bullshit cases. So Lincoln Riley's case was not tried by her or her office, my former office. It was tried by one of those private prosecutors, career prosecutor, excuse me, a great attorney. I think it might be Sheila Ross, but either way, and it was a good outcome. I mean, I think that you or I could have beaten. I mean, I've tried cases, and I'm sure off the street you could try that case because it was a bench trial, so no jury. So you just argue there's no need to be theatrical. It's just here's what happened, here's the evidence, and yeah, so that's what ended up happening. But and last thing I'll tell you to tie this all together with a bow is I saw them August of 2020. I got a sweet place. My roommate was a bartender downtown. We had a maid. We lived in a 9th-floor building overlooking downtown Athens. And it's bigger, they had like 100 bars, no, not 100, but 60 bars. It was a crazy college town, a lot of fun, and the university. And UGA, Georgia, is known for the arches. The arches are, you're not supposed to go through these famous arches unless you graduate from there. So there used to be bricks in front of it to the downtown. and there was an obelisk. That was the Confederate monument. On a Monday in mid-August at like 12:30 at night, I hear cheering on my window. I saw them. I saw them pull the obelisk, the Confederate monument, right next to the bricks in the arch. I could see it all. No bullshit. Hit the gun. No, not being hyperbolic. Coincidentally enough, I looked out my window and there they were doing. They were at 12:30, 11:30, 12 o'clock at night on a Monday night in August 2020. They removed that statue. They moved that obelisk, that statue, the Confederate War Monument Memorial. I believe they took it to the loop, the highway around there. But either way, yeah, people cheering. It's like, know your fucking history. You know, the why, and I'll be quiet in a second. So I want to hear your opinion on it. But the best, I never laid eyes on it, but I know of it. So when I moved to Macon, here's the greatest argument I've ever seen against removing anything, any type of statue. So Macon had a very corrupt mayor. I think he embezzled a lot of money, but he in the 2000s, I believe this is how the story went. Macon's got this beautiful train station, and still there is the words, the colored and for in marble, I believe, for stairs, and there was a white people went. When asked Preston why he didn't take it down, my understanding is the mayor said back 20 years ago or 25 years ago, I don't want to take it down because that's our history there. Again, I'm not a good storyteller. I'm butchering it, but that right there. So Macon, Georgia, you can still go there unless they've not removed it in the last 4 years. It's still there to show. And this is a black man, by the way, FYI. So, and not that your race makes you can speak more, like a lot of the society thinks we can. Anybody can speak on any topic. We should be respectful. But as a black man in Macon, Georgia, telling as a mayor multiple times over, tells people, remember, I keep that. That's there to so we remember. Now, again, that's more extreme than most of these an obelisk. That looks, that's not. That's a shape. It's a figure. But I'll tell you that's how I mean, not a spoiler probably. I don't think moving things like that or changing names is right. I think that I think we need a balancing act of a couple of things. I think we need to remember the past, and this loops into fraternity life. Is that we're not guilty of the sins of our father? You said earlier rhetorically, why Greek life's going downhill. It's not the people; it's the sins of our father argument. That because insurance companies, for example, start with insurance companies, insurance companies by definition make you succumb to your sins of your father. And proverbially speaking, obviously it's your own sins. So I get a bunch of tickets for my insurance company, my rates are going to go up. Greek life, we have Lords of London, which is like it's the one that insures everything out of England. Sins of our father. Every time somebody dies, they used to joke, not jokingly, but they used to say it's $50 more in dues every time somebody was found, was murdered in the fraternity or was killed in the fraternity. So my point is that I don't believe in sins of a father. I don't believe in reparations. I don't believe there's no live slaves. I don't believe in those things because it's not right. I think ultimately what it happens is I call it the proverbial pendulum, and again, I know other people have this idea too. I'm not saying Alex Cidado came up with it, but I like to conceptualize the proverbial pendulum that all problems in society overcorrect. After the civil rights movement, we've come to a point in the last 5, 10, 15 years where we overcorrected. All of a sudden it was bad to be seen as white. Generalization, but fair enough. White Christian man looked at as poorly. Overcorrection. The Me Too movement, after decades of sexual abuse and horrible things. You could legally rape your wife. Oh, sorry, rape was not a concept until like 60 years ago. I think in most states, I think that up to the 1960s, it was not a concept because you could not rape your wife because she was essentially your property. Women were called chattel up to the early 20th century. So for context, overcorrection. And everybody all of a sudden trust women on everything. I'm not saying you shouldn't. But overcorrection, all these problems in society get overcorrected, and just by definition. In World War I, they came out with hydrogen peroxide, contemporaneously came out. Great cleaning agent. I used to dilute it with water, put it in my mouth, great for my teeth. Bleach came out around, I think, World War II or right before. What does bleach do? Bleach fucking clears everything. The proverbial pendulum, the corrections of societal problems are like more akin to bleach than they are hydrogen peroxide because they fucking wipe out everything. So during the Me Too movement, for example, fuck the trust women bullshit. No, trust the process, but you have to be careful what you say. So I never got Twitter because fuck what people, when you spit facts here, people don't like to hear it, but I don't give a fuck about that because I care. I don't want to say, we don't care about your facts, don't care about your feelings. That's an old trope, but there's some validity to it. So my point is that these overcorrections of problems, they stick in your mind. I've had the same beliefs my whole life or my whole adult life. I haven't changed. And I'm not saying it's a good or a bad thing. In literature, it's called there's a positive character arc. A protagonist realizes about themselves, a negative character arc, which is like our antagonist. Then there's a flat character arc. Luke Skywalker, Goku, Captain America. They don't really change themselves, but they kind of change people around them. It's neither good nor bad. But I'll tell you right now, we get a beer tonight. I wish I was there, as I'd love to see you. It'd be the same shit as it was 12 years ago. So I don't expect people to be like me. I'm the exception. It's neither good or bad. There are cons for being. I see people and they're more, I've matured and got more educated, of course, but there are people who are way different. That's awesome for them. I'm very happy for them. But from my perspective, I've had these same beliefs on abortion, everything since I'm a big 10th Amendment guy. We'll get into that in a second, but like I'm a big states' rights guy, immensely underrated, most underrated amendment there is. But my overarching point is when I saw them remove that statue from, I don't know, from the top of the ninth floor, it might no more than 350, 400 feet. I mean, it was close, Pythagorean theorem type of thing. But it was maybe, 400 feet from the building, 300 feet from the building, like less than a football field. And seeing them do that, that summer of love, it was all bullshit. I mean, I almost got killed because I exaggerate a little bit, but I was coming back from a date and I was playing ABBA. I really like ABBA. And like, know the song for Fernando? Do you know that song? So there's a funny song. Fernando's a really good song by ABBA, and like it's about like a woman dating a Mexican man. And it's kind of coincidental, but I'm blaring ABBA, 70s rock, and I see 1,000 fucking people go by, hand to God, and they're all marching. This is like July of 2020, and they were all marching, 1,000 people. And I was taking a right. No one's going to help me. I didn't want to beep anybody. I was scared for about maybe 30 seconds to a minute because I'm taking a right, and in this both lanes is, I'm telling you, several 1,000 to 2,000 people were next to me, and I'm like, these people can knock my fucking car over. I'm not going to say a damn thing, but I'm stuck because the cops can't let me go, law enforcement can't let me go, and they were all protesting. Thankfully, nothing happened, but like it was scary. Just because again, if something had happened to me, I don't think anyone would fucking care. My family, things like that, but it could have been necessary collateral because again, but like I said, it was very, looking back at the moment, it didn't really change anything to me, but looking back on it, seeing people remove that statue, what if you did great things one day, and you're not judged by your time. And that's the thing that we all need to be more mindful of, is that, just because you judge somebody by their time is not a good nor bad thing. We take morality out of the situation and say, okay, was this person flawed? Of course, every human being is flawed. But how far do you want to go? Because, all of a sudden, 15 years ago, you could say, oh, Abraham Lincoln, nobody's going to go after him. People, although they might go after him one day, they look at you like you were, back when we were in college, if you said somebody's going to go after Abraham Lincoln one day and remove statues of him or call for that, you look at even the most progressive people, like, you're fucking nuts.
I remember there was a girl on my floor freshman year who actually was, again, she didn't like Abe Lincoln, but she was a fan of Andrew Jackson.
That doesn't make any fucking sense. That's so ridiculous. I'm sorry, I didn't even jump at you like that, but like the guy that didn't fully promote, but the guy that was in office during the Trail of Tears, old Hickory. My ex-girlfriend liked him for a different reason, because apparently he had like some like old pieces of bullet shrapnel in his like his arm. He could move around, but like he's kind of a badass. But like she liked the guy who at least was complicit / enforced the Trail of Tears. I've seen that. I've seen the entrance of that, by the way, in Georgia. By the way, I've gone by, driven past that before. But she liked him, but not the greatest president we've ever had.
It's like she argued that the tribes that Jackson moved are still alive and active today, but it's like, yeah, well, a lot of them died on the Trail of Tears, and
displaced them.
Jackson, and then Jackson also hanged two Native American Seminole chiefs.
Yes, he did.
Seminole War. It's like, when you win win a battle or you win a war, like a lot of times out of courtesy, like the opposition would let the commanders live. Like, for example, when like Cornwallis surrendered his sword to Washington, like Washington didn't have him hanged. No. And then like, I the only thing that I like Andrew Jackson for is at the Battle of New Orleans in early 1815. Like he led like
2 months after the war ended, though, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, but due to communication issues, they didn't know, and since communication was traveled a lot more slowly back then. Still, though, Jackson led a multi-American force. Like there was white soldiers, there was black soldiers, there was some Native American tribes that were allied with the Americans, and they completely annihilated the British at that battle. So it showed that, like, even though the war was over, like don't fuck with the Americans on the battlefield.
I mean,
And that really, I argued, when I took United States one history honors my sophomore year, I wrote my paper was on the Battle of New Orleans, and I argued that it was the Battle of New Orleans was key to be able to enforce the Monroe Doctrine.
yes,
Like
isolation.
when Monroe said, like, if you want to, like,
Over here.
if you meddle in our hemisphere, remember what we did at the Battle of New Orleans.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
Um, it's
Um,
funny you
but
mentioned that, but go on.
I also think, I mean, I somewhat disagree with some of the stuff that you said about the statues and the monuments. I think
Respect that.
it depends on the individual. Like, yeah, I know,
That's true.
like, a lot of, I mean, our founding fathers were racists and did, weren't really even though they practiced religion, they weren't really the most ethical people. But I think the reason why I'm against Confederate monuments is because at the end of the day they committed treason. It's not that they were racist and were trying to uphold slavery, but they committed treason. And like, I remember when I was 14, my first trip to DC, we got a tour of the Capitol, and I was surprised to see that Virginia had sent each state sends two historical figures to have their statues in the Capitol. Virginia sent Robert E. Lee, and Mississippi sent Jefferson Davis. And I was like, I remember asking my mom, I'm like, why are they there? They seceded from our country. And my mom was like, well, they were important for their states, so here they are. But I know I believe they both got replaced um since, but it's
Well, let me ask you this. Let me ask you that. And where we who who should be able to determine those things? It's a hard one. Should it be the government? Should it be private citizens that go through a similar to a referendum process? Because that's my concern. Is that I do agree it should be on a case by case basis, but it gets very scary very quickly about how quickly momentum can go in any direction with something like that. And that's what makes me weary of is that change the sake of change is not a good thing. And I'm not saying that applies here, logic applies here, because you have a very well intentioned, and I respect your argument here. My concern has always been let's take our time with things and let's not just give power to, well, let's see who we're giving power to and who really is running the show here. Because again, that was more of a movement that as a result of it, of that, so-called movement that shit came from it, but doesn't mean it was right. Now, again, what is right? Your right and my right cannot be the same thing. But my hesitancy again is who gets to make those decisions? And is it the locale? Is it the people there? Is it peer pressure because they feel that if they don't do so, they're going to get people aren't going to go to their college, that town, or they're not going to get tourism. And again, both sides are guilty, or all sides are guilty of using whether you want to call it cancel culture or just using information to to threaten somebody, similar to extortion. Okay, you keep this up, we're let the press know that you guys are for this stuff. It's like, well, I'm not for racism or Confederate these people saying they did good things. Speaking as somebody in this perspective from this town, it's like now you're all of a sudden defending yourself, saying this person's a racist or not. It's like no. It's like, whoa, this is my history here, and right or wrong, the bottom line is it's certainly not a clear cut issue, and I do agree. I mean, can we agree on that one? It's not a clear cut issue.
yeah, I mean, it definitely isn't. And like, maybe it should be, maybe a better argument of, like, instead of yelling like every Confederate statue has to come down, like, maybe just like it's nice to suggest some alternatives,
Yes,
or
and
like
take it
maybe
seriously.
yeah, or like, so, or maybe like have it's interesting because back in 2016 I argued that um there was a push. I don't know if it actually happened or not, but Harriet to replace Andrew Jackson with Harriet
Harriet Tubman.
Tubman.
Yep,
And
2020.
then at one point it was like it was going to be Andrew Jackson on one side and Harriet
And
Tubman
Harriet
on
the other
the
side.
other
Yep.
side. And then Bill Maher
Right away.
joked. Bill Maher, this joke's actually kind of a little offensive if you ask me, but he's like, Bill Maher was like, having Andrew Jackson and Harriet Tubman on the same bill is like having Hitler and Anne Frank on the same bill.
Oh, that's not. Yeah, that's not really. I mean, that's him being
But
overborn.
that's
Not
just Bill
applicant.
Maher being Bill Maher.
Yeah,
But
still, yeah, that's it for sensationalism. That's not really accurate. Um, he was not a good person, but he was not Hitler. I don't think, that's kind of a little of a stretch there.
yeah, I
But I
mean,
get why he's saying that.
but it's like, well, then I said, in my Facebook post, I actually posted my thoughts about this on Facebook. I said, I respect Jackson as a military general, but like the U.S. military might is already illustrated by having Washington on the $1 bill. So it's like, if, on our currency, we have Washington, who was a first president and really represents the military side of the U.S. You got Lincoln, who preserved the Union. You got FDR on the dime, who really got us out of the Depression.
Okay,
You got is it on the $10 bill? That's
it's him.
Hamilton. I mean, you got Hamilton, who really got us started economically at the beginning of our nation. So like having Harriet Tubman could be like on the $20 bill could represent, um, like if something's not right, you fight to change it. So like, it could represent like the fight for freedom and the
Yeah,
fight for.
I mean, I per se, like a lot of these topics, I think that she's qualified, but I think there are more qualified people. I bet you think you and I, if we were being serious, I think if you and I were being honest with ourselves, um, I think we'd come with a lot more people. I think that she was a very safe choice because she's a black woman. I mean, again, I'm not those things. I'm very matter of fact about that. I don't like, I don't like even the whiff of somebody being pushed in because of the color of their skin. Now she did a hell of a, she was one of the greatest Americans ever. Nobody, no doubt about that. But kind of like what Biden did, and I don't like that he did this either. And again, I'll be happy to be critical on my own side too. So don't, I'm not a hypocrite that way. But Biden putting in justice, a black woman as a justice as a campaign promise, that's fucked up. I mean, again, it gets you votes, and politics is not. There's an old expression that there's nothing civil but civil litigation. It's like that. It's nothing. Politics is dirty, and I get that, but it's so pathetic to me that people run with that. You know, I'm a short. I look Italian. I get racially ambiguous. I was telling my paralegal this the other day that I can honestly look somebody in the face, straight face, and go, I don't fucking care about my politicians looking like me. And again, I live in a state that's mostly white and then black and then is way down is Hispanic. It's different than back in Boston, Massachusetts. What frustrates me is that, or rather, what I tell people is that I don't give a fuck about that. And the moment anybody's ever said to me, well, what would you know about that? I can look at the back and go, actually, you've had black fucking people in the Supreme Court. You've had a black president. You've had half black. You've had black people in this state of Georgia who've been all the DA is we've had high ranking people here. Most not all of them, but a good amount of them. Ain't nobody like me. So I like saying use an argument because I can legitimately say to people that doesn't matter. And when people counter it by saying, well, how would you know? Well, my whole life I wasn't represented by people who look like me. Yes, I have, I'm not the most dark individual in the world, but most people are tall, white, waspy guys. That ain't me. So it's frustrating to me that that's a selling point because, again, as somebody who does not have anybody, there's Sotomayor, her and I might as well have the most, we're probably not fundamentally different, but damn close to it. She's an incredibly intelligent individual. Hats off to her. But her and I have nothing in common. And she's the only Latin, I believe she's Puerto Rican. I believe that's correct. You can check me on that one. But my point is that it's so pathetic to me that he had to put something on the Supreme Court that failed that thing. It's like not all black people think the same. You know, many people down in the state of Georgia don't like Clarence Thomas. Clarence Thomas is a hero of mine. I think he's a great man. People bash in liberal law school. People bash his names like this guy is so fucking educated. And if you want to go by, he's one of your own type of bullshit. It's such a ridiculous thought process. But again, prerogative. You all think how you want to. If you think that way, that these are your people, word, okay, that's cool. Whether you're brown, white, don't matter to me. But you think you take him in, but they don't because he's conservative. And it's like when they all bash him, was Bill Maher and Bales. And I watch a lot of Bill Maher. I get the clips on YouTube from him, and he's been better. Again, the Democratic Party's kind of gone by him a little bit. At least not the Democratic Party. The progressives and liberals have gone by him. He's still a Democrat, classically speaking. But my point is that it's so sickening to me, and I'll say it 1,000 times. It makes me sick to my fucking stomach when people pander like that because you're not. You call Trump what you want. He is what he is. But when you try to act like you're better than somebody else, when you're doing the same shit, shut the fuck up. Like, and again, adding somebody to the Supreme Court because of the color of the skin and because of their sex, that's bullshit. I'm not saying she wasn't qualified, not at all. But why you have to go out of your way to tell people that? Just don't do it. Just don't keep it to yourself. but that had to be a campaign promise, and that shit drives me up a fucking wall, man. I think it's so disgusting. We should be beyond that shit by now. Again, there are no Mexican people on the Supreme Court. I don't think we should need to have somebody who's 5'7" on there. No, 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 no. We can have Asian American, Indian American, and they're a lot of best people. And also, it's partisan politics because that's who the president, obviously, in the nomination process, people who are the best for the position, and that should be above partisan politics as well. But we can argue about that as well. But ultimately, we want people that are qualified. And to be clear, I think everybody in the Supreme Court is qualified. Before anybody else hears this, but I just think it's very un-American, and I don't use that very lightly. Very un-American to force somebody on to say you're going to put somebody on here solely for this because it takes away. Thankfully, it didn't, but it does raise eyebrows because, in my opinion, it does take away from that person's moment. It didn't at the time because everybody's so fucking overzealous. But you can make a strong argument that say this X person gets nominated because they're a Mexican man for the Supreme Court. Instead of on their merit, people are gonna be like, oh, they just put a fucking speck on there, they put a Mexican guy on there, and it'll devalue what that person's individual beyond the sex. It takes away from the individual achievement by just putting them up there as as people on my side of the aisle call them a DEI hire. I know it's a very triggering term for not you, but it's a little bit ostentatious. I don't particularly like to use it myself, but I get where they're coming from, and I have like the Delta Chi has DEI bullshit now, and I laugh about that nonsense. But the E is the one that needs to go away from those three words. But at the end of the day, I just think that we don't need a pander. We should be better than that. And if you're going to pander, be intentional. It's politics, so the art of deception and manipulation, blah blah blah. Get people like you and get your votes. But again, when you're that disingenuous, left or right, last thing I'll say about it is it'd be no different. Let me be clear. If my side of the aisle, we're like, we're going to put this evangelical pastor on here. We're going to put this Asian. If we did the same shit, it'd be like, whoa, Vivek, who's not a lawyer, but like, he needs to be on there. Something like we need an Indian American on there. I'd say the same shit. That's fucked up. Like, we should not be basing it because again, it's not. We should be going away from that road, not going down it. But I know I veered off there, but
yeah, it's interesting because 4 years ago, when Ossoff and Warnock were sworn in, they were sworn in also with Alex Padilla, who was the first. So Alex Padilla was the first Latino to be to serve as a U.S. senator from California, and then Ossoff was the first Jewish American, and
heritage wise, but
and then Warnock was the first African American senator from Georgia. So I congratulated them on my Facebook, and then my second cousin said, great for them, but I don't think profiling is the way to identify people when congratulating them. Instead, profile people as Americans. But then I responded, I said, absolutely. We're all Americans. One great aspect of America is that every single ethnicity, race, and religion has played a role in our success as a nation. But people who don't fit the white Christian male image have had it more difficult to be elected and represented by compared to the former. But that has continued to change as our history has gone on, and it is accelerating to new levels in the present. The more diverse our representation is, the better it is for everybody. So,
real quick, I will say that the difference, I know you're going with this, but the key fundamental difference is elected people being elected by the population in a constitutional republic like those two were, versus somebody who's being appointed by the executive branch to fulfill the Supreme Court vacancy, and stating that fulfilling a campaign promise of I will put a black woman on that court, and then doing it. Those are different. One of them, just so we're clear. I mean, I agree with you wholeheartedly, but that was a democratic process. They went up there, they took their chance, they became elected. Both of them. I don't really like them. I don't loathe them. They're both Americans and they're my brothers, under God and under the law. The law in terms of metaphorically speaking. But my point is that the difference. So I agree with you there again. But as long as we're on the same page, the fundamental difference being that Biden, again, which I don't think is the worst thing in the world. I don't go that far. But the difference is that he filled an appointment by saying, I'm going to do this because when I ran for president, black woman on the Supreme Court, I'm filling this an appointment, not elected appointment, and just saying, hey, black woman right here, let's get her down. And it's down the list. If you remember, they narrowed down to a couple, I believe 2 or 3. So that is fundamentally different than a black man or a Jewish man running for elected office and getting elected. I mean, get like running for office and elected. Those aren't the same thing. No, it's
Yeah.
representation. So they're both representation, but one's elected representation, one is representation of your people. That's what you're being sold as by Joe Biden, a white man. Those are different.
I mean, I think Ketanji Brown Jackson was a great pick, not just because she was a African American woman, but if you look at her
They shouldn't have
resume,
brought,
it was
but
a
they shouldn't have
very
brought that up
solid
though.
resume. What's
Oh yeah,
that?
but yeah, sorry. I mean, I should never interrupt you. My bad. You speak, I speak type of thing. You know, I'm very bad about this. I apologize. But let me ask you this: all things being equal, you think it was necessary to put that out there? And I'm going to put a black woman on the Supreme Court, and here she is, as opposed to not staying silent on it.
I mean, I think it's more important that we have an African American female, and also to find one that was truly qualified, but like maybe he didn't have to advertise it as much as he
But
did.
well, let me ask you this though: looking at the, I don't know how familiar you are with the census, but look, I mean, there are more brown people than there are black people in this country. So there are more Hispanic people than there. So why would we need a black woman? But you know, I don't want to assume your logic, but I would say if I have your logic correct, then shouldn't we have put a Mexican man on there before a black woman? We already have a Latin woman on there. Why would so there are more? So if you went by your logic, I'm just saying that, or what I assume to be your logic. If I'm wrong, please correct me. But if we're going by the largest minority groups that we need to have a spot, if you will, I didn't mean to put words in your mouth, but if that's what I'm assuming your logic is, we should have somebody that looks like me on there because the Mexican, we are my people are the highest growing demographic in this country, and there are more brown people than there are black people in this country. Fact, not opinion. Look at the census. So that with that in mind, if we're going that far, that's what we should do. But I don't want that. And I don't think, I mean, black people make up 13% of the population, whites 62%. Now, you know, that was 2020 census, 62.5. It's probably gone down a little bit. But there are more Hispanic, there are more people who are Latin or Hispanic than there are black in this country. So by that logic, I'm saying that, you know, there's already been two black men on the Supreme Court, and now a black woman, one Hispanic woman. Puerto Rico is part of the United States, not out of the country, but either way. So I'm saying it begs to reason by that logic, we'd have somebody else that was Latin Hispanic man. But I don't personally want that because I don't think the law should be, I don't think it has anything to do with it. I get why people want it. I don't want it because I don't want to be seen as a hypocrite. Because I mean, we're all hypocrites to a degree. So it's not taking moral high ground. It's more being consistent because again, I don't want to articulate something and saying, I want this. Oh, let me get this exception here. And I'm not implying you said that, not at all. Well, my position is that shouldn't fucking matter. I mean, the Supreme Court, I'm more happy. I mean, we just had a Catholic president and I didn't like him and for different reasons. And Trump's not, you know, if you told me Trump didn't believe in God or he just plays it up, yeah, he probably does. I mean, so I'm not going to pretend like I'm not an idiot. Like, he's an ultimate capitalist. You know, there's a lot of negatives with him. I'm not an apologist for him. But I will say the three most important things to me, in no particular order: Supreme Court, foreign policy, and the economy. I can never vote for Democrats that way because I just couldn't do it. I will tell you that my party's not perfect, certainly not. But you know, again, I don't like we get bogged in the bullshit too much, and I think that this election was hopefully a wake up call for your party, not forever. I think both sides need a course correction, but I think that it's always the loudest voices, or typically tends to be the loudest voices that kind of pull us in the wrong direction, so to speak. At least in terms of wrong here, winning an election. So no morality, just right or wrong to get the population. I mean, and the deck is skewed towards you guys. You guys should be winning. It's very hard for us to win the popular vote. Number one, because California, and number two, I think that this election. Well, let me ask you a question. What do you think about Harris getting the whole Biden leaving, not the primary? What are your thoughts on that? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but as a person about democracy, what are your thoughts on that one?
Well,
Tough one, isn't it?
I think Biden did do a good job, but I think that if Biden, like a year ago, like in fall 23, inflation was still high, and it still is high. I mean, however, it is lower compared to all other major um, first world economic countries. It is lower compared to a lot of other places in the world, and it is coming down, just not as fast as we'd like it. But I mean, I know Biden's age was a problem, and those two things were really going against him in fall 23. And now they're saying internal polling, Biden's campaign was doing internal polling, and they saw that if Biden had stayed on, Trump would have won like in a major landslide. Like Trump would have won like New Mexico, New Hampshire, maybe even New Jersey and New York. And it was just like so Biden's. But then I think would if that were the case, the question is when did Biden's insiders see that poll? If they saw it in fall 23, then I think Biden should have stepped aside and allowed for a Democratic primary. But I mean, it's tough too because like the presidency is supposed to be a service position, but I feel like especially Trump, but I feel like I mean Biden in 2021 was already saying that he was going to run for re-election. Like presidents, it's the presidency is
Yeah,
bigger than
he
one.
held out. He held out after the midterms. If you
Yeah,
recall, I don't think he said it right away. He was going to be a one. It was implied he was going to be a one and done. The next
yeah.
generation.
Like the presidency is bigger than any one individual, but
Correct.
like all presidents would rather have two terms than one. Like their
Yes.
presidency gets really boosted in history if they serve two terms rather than
Yes.
one.
Yes.
Um, and I feel like Biden could have stepped aside earlier, and then but then there's also maybe some thought that like one they thought that once Biden got on stage with Trump, he would illustrate that he still got it, and he's still the leader that the Americans elected him to be in November 2020. But then when he got on stage, he just I don't think
Oh, don't tell me. You don't. Come
oh
on.
here he's
Come on.
not a
Come
good
on.
he's
Come on.
losing his communication skills. I think he's still got it, but he's losing
In
his
decline.
communication
Caught
skills.
it. He's been dude. He's been caught in a decline for years. And I'll take you. So let me ask you. You don't think that they put that that was, I believe, the earliest debate of all time,
Yep.
at least in modern history. You don't think that was intentional? You don't think that that was put there to make him look ridiculous?
I mean, it was interesting because it
Think
was I
about
feel like
this.
both sides agreed to it. Like
Well, I
Trump was
did
Trump was really eager to get on stage and
for that
like I mean
reason.
because Trump has been running for trying to get back in there ever since he left. I mean,
Yes.
there was talk. He actually almost announced his candidacy all the way back in summer 21 after the Afghanistan withdrawal.
Yep.
But
You wait till the primaries.
yeah, he just um I feel like I think Biden knows what's going on, but like and like he can definitely say like I mean he can say some good make some good statements and explain stuff when he's given time to explain everything, but he just isn't really like he had a stutter when he was younger and
Yep.
then he beat the stutter, but now in his older age his communication skills are like first his communication skills had to be fixed when he was younger, but now at the end of his life they're going back downhill hill. Like it's kind of like he was here and then with some help he got back up here, but then now he's been falling down and then in his
Well,
uh his 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 elder age is getting to him. So like he just wasn't able to communicate or really like formulate everything he wanted to say on stage. But that once again, a lot of the American public they want someone who's going to be able to speak very clearly, and he just wasn't speaking clearly in that debate. So I mean, I give him he made the right decision to step aside like
like
shortly after that debate, but I think um he really in hindsight he should have stepped out in fall 23 and then allowed for a Democratic primary. And
yeah,
then I mean Harris only had 107 days to campaign
you had
and
$1 billion, bro. And like also,
yeah.
but that's what I want to know though is again, I'm not trying to back him in the corner, but like I'll tell you how I'll answer. I mean, again, you can believe me or not. If it was my candidate, point blank, then and I found out that so my understanding is allegedly the facts are the facts that he was he stepped down. Pelosi stepped down. He did not do that willingly. If you want to believe that, not you but anybody, okay, well the boogeyman's real too. So is Easter Money. He was forced out. That's the part that everybody basically can prove. The part that cannot be proven is that allegedly there was a conversation between the Clintons, I think Barack Obama, Clinton, Pelosi, but there was talk of there was a school of thought that they were going to have like a mini primary, and that in the July, and they were going to handpick the people. Can you fucking imagine? And it backfired. They got two parts of the plan. Step one, kick out Joe Biden. Step two, get this, kind of handpick or get down to a certain amount of people, probably like the governor of Pennsylvania and Minnesota, things like that. But That didn't end up happening. I think something equally as bad. So that would have ended up happening then on the at the DNC in August. They would have held the open convention, I believe is how they would have done it. So they didn't get their way. That's what I've read many times. Sake of argument, say that was true. That the former couple presidents, Democratic presidents, so Barack Obama, Clinton, say Pelosi, people like that wanted this open. Just sake of argument, they wanted this. Well, for starters, I'll tell you right now, if that were the case, that's an oligarchy right there. By de facto, call it de facto oligarchy of how under democratic is it that the people that think they should run this country, who are former presidents, no longer public servants, get to hand the arrogance they have to think they can pick it. Again, I'm sure the conservatives feel the same way. What it was equally, if not worse, was they gave it. She just got it. And if you recall, the Sunday morning, Biden didn't tell anybody until like the afternoon. I think he wrote that letter on Sunday. Very smart on their part is that when did that happen? It was a Sunday right after the RNC. After Trump got an assassination attempt on Saturday, RNC ended on Thursday. Biden stepped down Sunday. Not a fucking coincidence. That took all the momentum out. And then within a day, Sunday to Monday, within 24 or 36 hours, by Monday night, they were saying, well, she's really doing the right thing. She's just scooping up all the delegates. I mean, I'll tell you right now, I've always thought, and I didn't know at the time, certainly, but when I read my history, I thought that one of the biggest anti-American things ever done in terms of just our democracy and just be able to vote was super delegates. Your party did that in '72. That was some asinine shit right there. And the fact that they still have them is ridiculous because that screwed Bernie Sanders out of the nomination once, maybe twice. They're not pledged until the fucking convention. So if they switched at the convention in '16, he would be the nominee. Who knows what would have happened? But my point is, she did not. She was, there was several million votes cast, not one for her, and she stayed on because they weren't going to kick a black woman off a ticket. We can argue the merits if she should or should not have been there. She was a VP, fact, not opinion. Color and race aside, Indian, it doesn't matter. She was there, and so, but also you could not, if they had taken her off there, it would have pissed a lot of Democrats off for, hey, you just kicked the first black woman in the line, or half black woman, it doesn't matter. So that's the optics of it. It shouldn't have been that way, but I don't live in theory. I live in the real world. That's a real thing, and pisses people off. Guess what? Those are voters. They can feel how they want to feel. Just like we're Americans. We can all feel how we want to feel, right? So I don't mean to demean that, not at all. I think it's kind of sad when you look at things through a singular lens of race and things like that. But either way, that's how one wants to do it. Fine. So we say, well, she only had 100 days. He fucked up by, well, first of all, I think he was in decline way back in like 21, 22. There was a lot of videos about that. But even if he wasn't, it was arrogant to him. He ran on, his biggest thing was to beat Trump. He did. And then be a bridge president. That's what he ran on. I don't recall him, and I could be wrong about this, but I believe he didn't talk about re-election until 22. I don't think it happened in 21. I could be wrong with that. But if that's true, he was polling. Trump started to pull ahead of him in the spring, but who knows about the internal polling in 24, the last spring. But look, I mean, I think that he should have stepped aside. It was his ego. Like I said, all presidents like that. I want 2, I want 3, I want 4. That's why we got the amendment. But my point is that you don't have to say the words and it may make you feel differently, but if the shoe was on the other foot, I truly like to believe that I would say that's bullshit. She did not win the nomination. That was an anti-democratic process. It sucks that from a practical standpoint, yes, it's very close to the election, but shame on that party for being so stupid and doing this. Again, that's why it's all kind of eerie or weary, or I'm weary. It's a little eerie about the debate. Had the debate been the normal course of business, September, not in June, none of that would have happened. Why is it never happened? Again, it's every 4 years, but it's super random that, okay, the guy that was, Trump, right or wrong, you're in your basement. That's how you won 2020. I think he won the election. Let me be clear. Talking about Biden. I think that that it was a weird time then, but yes, I believe he won. With that said, he didn't come out at all. It was great for him. So it played to him because, he was showing solidarity with masks, again, maybe that's how he felt, maybe it wasn't, but it played out well for him. Part of the reason he won, let Trump ruin himself. COVID doesn't happen, Trump wins in a landslide in 2020. February 28th, 2020, February 29th, economy was roaring, things were great. And then 2 weeks later, COVID happened, the China virus, and like that ended up happening. And then Fauci, we can get to the pardons in a second. So I'd love to know your opinion on that. Fauci's a fucking piece of shit. I don't like that guy should have been, that guy's the scumbag. I really believe that in my heart of hearts, but he's just, I think that he's a liar. Again, the preemptive pardons are ridiculous, but point is that Biden should have stepped aside probably when you guys won, when you guys barely, it was supposed to be a red wave in 22. Once it was not a red wave in 22, and you guys kept the Senate, Biden should have stepped aside. That's when he should have done it. Because again, the signs are there, man. I mean, there's a video I saw on Rogan. There was like a stand-in for Biden. And maybe other presidents have it too. The guy was like fucking 6'8". There's a video, and this is a real video. It was about 6 months ago. They were walking, and he's walking with Jill Biden. It's not Biden. He's like 7 or 8 inches taller than Joe Biden is. It's not a deep fake. It's a real video where he had a body double there. And the guy's better posture. And again, Biden's an old man. I'm not shitting on him for that. This guy's like 6'6", say Biden 6'1", sorry, probably 6'1", 6'2", with a limp, not a limp, with over, shoulders over like this. He's probably 6 feet. This guy was like this, better posture than me. Fucking guys like 6'6", 6'7". You should look it up. It's fucking wild. Maybe there should be, people walk, a body double. I mean, they're not saying the words. I'm not saying that Biden's been in bed the whole time, but there was at least one body double, and it's a real thing. You look it up. I'm skeptical too, but anyway, my point is, I think that he did a disservice, and then I think your party needs to, when there are black people coming to my party, and spending and women, and it's just wild that it ended up going that direction. It's like, and it's Trump. I'm surprised people. Again, I don't love the man. Voted for 3 times, but when those people are like, nah, and they gave her, she spent a crisp $1 billion in fucking 3 months, over $1 billion. I think it's $1 billion with her and several hundred million with the party. So I think it was closer to $2 billion, but call it $1 billion. It's like, where the fuck did all that money go? I think she was $20 million in the whole November. And Trump actually trolled her by saying, we'll pay that. It's either I think her campaign was owed 18 or $20 million. And Trump's like, oh, I can get that for you guys. So again, how do you spend all that money and lose? I think that money should be out of politics. I think you're right. Citizens United was a bullshit decision as well. But really, look, I think that you guys, we'll see it, but I don't think you guys have anybody. It's early, but we have a deep bench. I don't know what y'all have right now. We'll see. I mean, but again, it was my whole lifetime. I saw the popular vote by a Republican once when we were 14, 15. I didn't identify as a Republican back then. My family also didn't really like Bush. I remember we went to Cape Cod one time. My mother used to like watching, the flamboyant people, with gay people, hippies. I just loved Provincetown, the good food. She liked the people watch. And I remember seeing a sign. It was like good Bush. It was a woman's like, vagina in the bush, bad Bush. It was Bush. I remember like being like 12 years old, and like, I knew from porn. I was like, I knew what that was. I'm like, what? Like, it's like, whoa. I think I saw motherfuckers wearing that shirt, like good Bush, bad Bush. And that was, like I said, probably not 02, excuse me. Probably war was in 03. So yeah, probably 03, 04. 8th grade or something, like 7th grade. But yeah, I mean, at any rate, that's my thoughts. So I'm going to be quiet.
Well, I like Dr. Fauci because, I mean, he was a White House doctor for more than 50 years. I mean, he did a lot of work, on the AIDS.
Bad.
What's that?
You can both be good and do bad things. Like, do you believe? Let me ask you very quickly. Do you think that do you believe that they didn't know anything about that in the lab over in Wuhan? Do you believe that?
I mean,
they were studying the coronavirus there. Do you think that he didn't know?
Well, China. I mean, it started in China mainly because of
where to start
wet markets.
Not
think so.
That's not
China. Also, China was not. We don't have a very good relationship with China right now, so China was not sharing the possibility of this virus breaking out with either the U.S. or the rest of the world, so we weren't really prepared for it. But I mean, I don't think it was dumb to wear masks, or I mean, and I think social distancing did.
Well, the masks don't protect you from anything. That's a fallacy. You can ask any doctor that those masks, they don't. You can still ingest everything. Everything comes through those little the paper.
But it's a lot less though. A lot less.
To a degree, yeah. I mean, I'd say that, I down here, and that's probably the biggest difference is that we closed down for like a week. We didn't have masks. We didn't wear mandated to wear masks in the office. I worked the entire time through coronavirus in person. When I was a juvenile prosecutor then, still helping out a new kid who's getting a job. He was about to graduate law school, whatever. But we didn't have to wear them. We were work from home with the government for like a week, I think. I saw my paralegal this today. Maybe 10 days. Probably less than that, honestly. Maybe a week. Back in the office. I don't think we wore a mask for like 6 months or a year there. I mean, again, that's a very contentious topic. So is the vaccine. I mean, my whole family were very, 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 very. I didn't go home for 2.5 years. I went home for Christmas in 19, and I didn't go home again until July of 22. So I've been home since Christmas. I mean, Thanksgiving 23, but this is the second longest time I've ever gone. But I almost went 3 years without seeing my family because they just, my sister just had a kid, and I did get the vaccine, which I regret doing. But it's kind of peer pressure. The family's like, "Oh, you got to come home. You have a nephew now." I'm like, "Well, all right. Well, I'm a man of respect. I'm not going to disrespect." That's me. That's how my brain operates, is respect. Might be a little old fashioned, but that's how my little brain operates. So for me, it was going. I wanted to go home for that, but no, they took it all serious. I mean, they didn't fucking. They were the opposite of me. I had a great time down here. I got COVID the Christmas of 22. Sorry, 20, the first year. I lost my sense of smell for like 5 days, but no, I mean, I guess it was. Depending where you are, you guys can't be outside as much as we can down here. It still gets cold down here, but not nearly as much. We got a little snow this year. I don't think we got snow that year, but no, I think that you guys handled it. It was too extreme. I think you're locked. You guys are lockdowns for fucking ever. I mean, shit, they made us wear. I know the gym I went to, Athens Health Club, whatever it was. We had to work out. We had to wear a mask for a week, and I almost passed out doing pull-ups. This is fucking dumb. Like, I'm not fucking. There ain't nobody in here. But they stopped doing that. The governor, I think May 31st, had shut that shit down. I think Kemp did a good job. So I thought so did DeSantis. So we built up government's doing. I mean, social Medicaid is not a pathway forward. We can get to that one, but the state's doing great. So is Florida. I think they were prime examples of how to go through that period of time. Again, it was a lot of uncertainties. I get that, but California was not a good test. It was a failed test run. I mean, that's a failed government. Gavin Newsom's a scumbag and great politician, but just a scumbag. And y'all, I think you guys were way too much. It was too extreme. I mean, I remember telling my friends up there, they go to the bar. It was so many years of that nonsense. It's just, it is what it is. And people, it did not kill 99 point, it was 99.97 or something like that, or 777 people. And if you weren't in, so again, to be clear, I don't bash Cuomo for putting people on ventilators. They didn't know at the time. He didn't know. I mean, think of all the people, I think it was probably hundreds of elderly people died because they were put on ventilators because they were told that was the good science, and it wasn't. And that, again, that's not the that it is what it is. They get shit wrong sometimes. It was masks for bad, masks for good, bad, then good, or not bad, but in effect, irrespective of everything, they're not going to help anything. Then you needed them, but again, I'm not one of those people who's going to say Cuomo was no, I think that they kept them on the ventilators a little too long. I don't know it to be the truth, so I'm going to assume with grace that he didn't do anything wrong, and that. But again, at the time, putting all those old people on ventilators was what science told them to do. And again, sometimes it's not the science is wrong. Men and women, societies doesn't, the people, the scientists don't know it in real time. So again, I don't fault people for that. I think that I bet Fauci, I tell people all the time, one of the hardest things for the human brain to do is entertain two opposing thoughts simultaneously. So it can both be true that Fauci did a lot of good things, and also he knew more than he let on. I really believe that he did.
I mean, like, I think if you look at the big picture of Fauci, though, I have a lot of respect for him. But then I mean, Trump also was incorrect about suggesting bleach. Like, remember that he
That was
suggested.
a joke, but he didn't.
But like, there was like 10,000 people actually did that though, and like,
No, but I will say that. But look at what happened to Rogan. He said ivermectin, I believe is the name of the drug. I mean, Chris Cuomo crucified him with it wasn't Don Lemon, one of those idiots on CNN. And the irony is, Cuomo started taking it last year because his doctor, he's got long COVID, which we don't argue the merits of that or not. But Cuomo was put on by his doctor that medicine that Rogan had said to take 3 years ago. Rogan is not a doctor, and he decided to say it. And then, to be fair, he got his comeuppance by going on valuetainment. Like, I don't know if you watched Patrick Bet David, but he's got a podcast and those people. But Cuomo went on there and got his lashings because, here he is shitting on Rogan 3 years before how fucking stupid he is for saying that to people. And then this motherfucker's on himself. Again, none of them are doctors. But all right, but this ties me back to something you asked me earlier. If it came out, hypothetically, and I want you to put thought in this, that if it came out that Fauci did know more, but you believe in your heart of hearts that he did more good than bad, would you still believe he's a good, again, not my, I just want to know your opinion. If it came out, he did some shady shit, nothing, but in your mind, his good things from the AIDS epidemic on to now outweighed the bad. Say his name was on a building, okay, the Fauci Center. Would you want that name removed if he still thought his good stuff outweighed the bad?
I mean, if it's the good outweighed the bad, I'd say yes. I mean, they're calling it the Fauci effect. He his work and all of his talks he gave about the virus actually inspired a lot of people to go into the medical field or change careers and go into the medical field. So there's already he's already got an effect named after
Well,
himself.
let me ask you this then. So you would agree that if I don't know if he has, I'm sure he has his name in buildings. I don't know that, but if he had them on there, you'd be good with them staying on there. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So then why don't you want to apply that to the logic of the Civil War? Because a lot of those people, you call it, and it is objectively speaking, it was treason. But a lot of people, I think everybody was pardoned. Almost everyone was pardoned because looking at it from their perspective, I'm certainly not a Southern sympathist. I grew up in Boston, right outside for 25 and a half years of my life. And that's why, I speak that way still. Like curse, I'm not Southern. I love the South and I want to become a Southern man. But my values will always, or how I perceive the world will be from my upbringing on after college. So I have no loyalty to the South from in that standpoint. That being said, though, you can apply the same logic to people, Civil War uh, veterans, and who are named things are named after them, whether it's Fort Benning, the statues, and from depending on your perspective, maybe they're good outdid the bad. Maybe they were a great leader, and they were they only knew about their country, and they thought that was the real U.S. They are wrong, But looking at it from the time, so if I thought, okay, looking at this person's work their whole life, and my opinion is that they did more good than bad, then my perspective would be that I take your logic and say that that person should stay on there. So it's no different. I mean, I think the only difference is how much time has gone by. Now, to be clear, I'm not equating Dr. Anthony Fauci, to Civil War veteran general. I'm not doing that at all. What I am saying though is the only difference is when has time gone on. 200 years from now, maybe Fauci is, they name the Nobel Peace Prize or new prize after him, or conversely, he's the worst thing ever. I'm not suggesting that, but hypothetically, he was the worst thing ever. Motherfuckers would have the same argument about Civil War people as they are now. And again, you could apply that logic. Okay, well, what was he like in this time? It's easy for us to judge stuff now because Fauci's still alive. We don't know everything. We're part of that same civilization, the Zeitgeist Society. We don't have the values they had. Nobody's got the values they had, or hopefully nobody's got the values they had in the 1860s, right? So my point is that a lot of those people for a long time were seen as heroes. Again, majority of people did not, to be clear, most people didn't own slaves. It was affluent people. That's certainly not an excuse for it. Civil War had to happen. The North wasn't all, the North had slaves too, but again, no, point is that Civil War had to happen. Abraham Lincoln's my favorite president by far. And I think that a lot of great things came out of that war had to happen. What sucks is that after Reconstruction and the Jim Crow laws, we went backwards. Hell, we had women, we had black people in Congress in the 1880s, I believe, 40 years before women could vote in the 1920s. So that's right, 35 years. So, and then it went backwards. But my overarching point is that I think like everything else, we need to look at things through with mercy and grace. And I think not just from a biblical standpoint, but also just, a humanistic standpoint, that I think that, again, it is easy. It's tempting to look for the bad guy. And the United States, and you probably know this better than I do because you're more of a scholar in history than I am, certainly. But when we don't find a bad guy, or when superpowers can't find a bad guy, they invent one. And when I say invent, after the Cold War, we had to find something, right? And eventually we go to Afghanistan after 9/11, and we went to the wrong fucking country. And the people that we backed, I'll never forget. 1987 is the Rambo 3. And the very end of it's like because the Russians were fighting the Afghans in the 80s, and it's like the end of it's like this movie's trip. This movie is in dedication to the hardworking. I'm paraphrasing, hardworking Afghan people. And I was like 15 years old. I'm like, what the fuck? Or 14 years old. I was like, that was on like less than 20 years ago, and now we're fighting these people. I was young. I didn't understand how time goes on. But again, we train most of those people, right? So I think when we don't have somebody, I think it's human nature to we can't find a bad guy. We try to trivialize things and simplify them to, okay, we need to find the bad guy. So I think that statues, while we can argue the merits of whether they should be up or not, I think it's a very easy, low-hanging fruit of, okay, these people were on the wrong side of the war. We're righteous. It's like more extreme version of Nazis. Nobody's going to be a sympathy for the Nazi. There's sympathy for the devil. There's no sympathy for the Nazi. And I'm not saying they need that. But a little less extreme version is, okay, these people committed treason, but a lot of them had no choice. And again, I don't know every single one they're named after, but I would say that I don't like changing names of things just willy-nilly. And if outside pressure, again, I think everybody can have different advantage on this, but I think ultimately is the precedent. And the last thing I'll tell you about this is I read a story 15 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, that I believe there was a judge in Tennessee that was giving time off of his sentences to certain inmates if they voluntarily castrated themselves. It was chemical castration. When I read that, I thought that was one of the worst things I'd ever read in relation to what it could stand for, meaning that to me stood for step one on 1,000. There are 1,000 steps to eugenics. That's step one. Let the fucking people, and I think this would appeal to your kind heart. I mean, sincerely, but yeah, look this shit up. That they put in Tennessee, they was voluntarily letting people take time off their sentences for castration. This is only like maybe 10 years ago, 8 years ago, and I believe it was Tennessee or Kentucky. I think it was Tennessee. But again, if we start giving people the incentive to start doing something like that, that's the road to eugenics. That's the first step of 1,000, perhaps. It might be something small, but it's like everything else in society. When you see where the wind's blowing, you want to course correct. And like that with the eugenics there or the statutes, it's a dangerous precedent to start because all of a sudden, maybe it is from a righteous standpoint, but some people are going to take that as an opportunity to pervert a good, the old expression, the path to hell is paved with good intentions. People are going to pervert noble intentions, like taking things down and use it for their own benefit. And that's what I'm not cool with. That's why I don't consider myself any ist. I'm not a feminist. I'm not a Black Lives Matter ist. I'm not in that shit. I believe in principles that align with these groups, but I've been saying this for 15, 20 years. Feminism does not have the monopoly on sex rights, or their equal rights between men and women. Black Lives Matter does not have they're not the monopoly. They don't have the monopoly on on minority rights. They're not. Part of Black Lives Matters. They're part of their official slogan up to a couple of years ago was reparations, and like they were like shitting on the nuclear family. That's from them themselves. That's not like somebody right media distorting that. Fuck reparations. No, none of them are slaves. And again, I have no problem being this cavalier because it's the truth. I don't like since San Francisco a couple of years ago was going to pass a bill more symbolic than anything. They were going to pay people who were ancestors who were slaves, so they were the descendants of these slaves, $7 million, and then like $250,000 a year in perpetuity. Look it up. That's the real thing. It was 2-3 years ago they voted for that in San Francisco. First of all, where the fuck? I think it's a $250,000,000. It's something ridiculous, over $1 trillion, might be $250,000,000. Fuck no, enough of that nonsense. And again, we should be respectful to the past, but again, sins of our father. I'm 35 years old in 10 days. 35 years. I was born January 12th, 90. Okay, I was 23 years after 67, 22 years after the civil rights movement. 32 years, excuse me. 120 plus years after after slavery ended. No, I don't believe half white man. It's probably a little more than that because the Mexican probably is a little white in it. But a half Caucasian individual, that's the size talking right now. I don't believe in that at all. I don't believe that. No. The Japanese got it after World War II, a little different. But no, you can't go back and do that. Now, I don't believe affirmative action kind of ran its course. I think Clarence Thomas had an opinion 20 years ago, like basically when's this shit gonna? How much longer are we do this for? And it's been a long time. I mean, it's been 60. It's been almost 60 years since. Yeah, it's been 50, 60 years if I'm my math right since 1968. It's like no, it's just those things need to go away in society. Now, it doesn't mean we shouldn't be full measures. I mean, and also, FYI, I mean, when we say affirmative action at Harvard, my understanding is they were discriminating against Southeast Asian students who were academically super inclined to let in Black people. So they were actually discriminating against them because they were overachieving, even though they are a minority group themselves. That Harvard case, it's just like, and they proved that. It's like, what are we doing here? Like, enough of this. Again, we should be course correction. We went too fucking far with this stuff, sexual. So all those things, not individual basis, but as in big picture, the proverbial pendulum went too fucking far. We overcorrected all these problems, and now we're paying for it now. That's why one of the reasons why Trump won, I think, is because people were pissed at. In your post earlier, I'm Catholic and white. I mean, my parents are white, but I love pulling the brown card out because I can. So my thing is, last thing I'll say about this is that I've always conceptualized it as a 1950s table. It's high school, you got the jocks, blonde cheerleader, the white jocks. This didn't exactly happen, but imagine all those fuckers telling the Black kid, Mexican kid, there are probably no transgender people about them, for sake of argument, saying, fuck you all, you cannot have a seat at the table. And everybody wants to see this proverbial table. Now they have a seat. The entire time it's been not the extremes. I'm generalizing, so hear me out. Unfortunately, not everybody feels this way, but unfortunately, now that other people have seats at the table, which they damn well should, a lot of these motherfuckers now, the extreme people, not all, are kicking the chairs back, going, "Fuck you, you had your time." I'm not 250 years old. I don't believe in you. First of all, you're disingenuous as fuck because now you have a seat at the table here. You want to kick other fucking people's chairs away. Like, hey, white straight guy, fuck you. What you know, I thought we were equal. Nah, motherfucker, it's my time now. That's how a lot of people come across. And in my fucking soul, in my part of my friends there, my soul, my heart, I believe that. And I see it all. I've seen it my whole life, at least the last 15, 20 years, since I was in my mid-teenage years. Oh, 20 years since I was 15. It never sat right with me. It's called reverse racism when we were kids, teenagers, something like that. It's racism. Then you were told racism is a power structure where blacks and minorities cannot be racist because if you're not in power, you can't. No. The definition is very simple. If you believe your race is more superior than others, we can throw in ethnicity too, because Latinos are not race; they're ethnicity. That's racism. That's all it is. We don't need a power. We don't need to add shit to the fucking definition. That's what the current definition is, and they will change it. Don't worry, they will, because they fuck with words too much too. But the statutes, they need to stop changing definitions. Add words, don't change definitions. Not willy nilly, but overarchingly, that's what scares me, is that I worry that a lot of people who didn't have a voice before have a voice now in the extremes, and they were disingenuous this whole time. Them, whoever, last 50 years, 60 years, because it was all about being equal. Now it's not about being equal anymore. Now it's more of a tonality of my time. Fuck you, white guy, get off the table. Now, again, this is extreme people talking away. That's the message I see and I hear. There's not what their exact rhetoric is, but looking at the message, looking at actions of people, that's my biggest takeaway from society for as long as I can remember. That's what it's about. Now it's bad to be white. It's like, okay, again, I'm super generalizing. We could talk about this for days, not just hours. But that's what I don't like, is that so many disingenuous minority people, people of my own kind, my own brown people, not most of them, but the extreme ones, now will say on both sides of the mouth, we need to be equal, but fuck you, motherfuckers, because we need to be equal. Then in the quiet part, fuck you, white man. That's not being fair or equal. That's wrong. And a lot of these mad cats, because they have a bad taste in their mouth of the white man growing up, whatever it is, the symbolism of white man, they run with it. And the irony is they end up generalizing, being they become the very thing they hate and loathe. They become the generalizer. They generalize about the white man or the straight people or the Christian person. It's like, motherfucker, you're judging them. You were generalizing, judging them like you did not want them to do to you. So how the fuck is that okay? It's not. But a lot of white people, unfortunately, will smile and it'll be okay. Fuck that. That's why I call it brown card. Come at me. I'm more diverse than all these motherfuckers. They're just about so I have all these other things I can tell you about. My point is, that's what pisses me off, is motherfuckers don't be real. And I have no problem being real about race relations or sex relations. I'm all for calling it hypocrisy. I can't stand it. We're gonna have a conversation that not you're respectful, and but motherfuckers want to be like that. If anybody, you should be the most mad. Not that you are. I mean, you're 6'4". You're built like a tight end. You're it's a white man right here. It's a handsome man right here. But like, they bash people like you who are fighting for them. Doesn't mean you shouldn't change your mind. And I'm mad respect for you being who you are, being humanitarian. You've always been not jolly. It's not a good word for it. You've always been a compassionate, respectful man, even though these motherfuckers, you or somebody looks like you is like, would be the symbol on their flag with an X through it. The fucking white straight man. I'm not saying you're present Christian anymore, but you grew up that way, and it's like, this motherfucker's on your side. So again, it's the quiet, loudest voices. Just like there are Nazis and Klansmen in my party. There's like 5 of them, 5 too many. Let me be clear. Like when they had the news came down here 7-8 years ago to Dawson County and shit around here in North Georgia. I live in Atlanta. There's like nobody there. Like, it's like, chill out. Like, the news, hey, sensationalism, knock the fuck off. You're giving these people a fucking message or a platform. If you don't fucking go to Dawson County or this county in Georgia where the 10 route and racists are, it's more than that. But you don't do that, then nobody knows. But you would have thought there was thousands of these motherfuckers, tens of thousands. There wasn't. Again, I'm not saying that's good. There's too many. Nobody should be discriminatory in a perfect world. But I'll just tell you this: if anybody believes that there aren't black supremacists or brown this supremacist or gay, they don't think they're superior. They are out there, and they should be called out, but they're not, because their rhetoric is the norm. It's a part of the zeitgeist now, and that's okay. And you can't call those motherfuckers. Those people should be called out. It's easy. Yes, the people on the far right, Klan, Knots, got it. We can all condemn them. I'm Catholic and Native American and Mexican. They would have hung me back in the day. All good. Even though I actually met a guy who went to Charlottesville, and he actually a friend of mine. I thought he went to UMass with us. He actually lived in the house after we did, and he said to me, the week he went. This is a funny story. It's early August 2017. I'm home, and I won't name his name. We'll call him Jim. Jim is like, "Hey man, we're at the Y working out." He goes, he starts telling me how he tells girls he's a Nazi. I go, "What do you?" I go, "We're just working out." It's like an hour conversation. I go, "What do you mean you're a Nazi? What are you talking about? You guys aren't like that." He goes, "No, we're going to this rally. The white race." And he's telling this shit to me. I thought he was joking. This is right. So it ends up being, well, he goes, "So yeah, I'm actually going down to I'm going to Charlottesville in a week and a half." I go, "I never heard of that before. That's a weird name, Charlottesville. I don't know what that is. I don't know Charlotte." So we're in the Y working out, and like 7 days later, this motherfucker's there in Charlottesville, and his friend, so my friend, former friend, John Donnelly, went down there with Richard Spencer. They were his bodyguards. So he was a police officer in my hometown of Woburn. They didn't find the shit out until 2 years ago, and he got removed from the police force. They opened up all his cases and shit. So these two white guys, and I remember the other guy, let's call him Jim, were working out. It's like a Forrest Gump moment. He goes, "Yeah, Cidado, if you were 80% white, you take a DNA test, you can be part of the white movement." I go, "Well, I'm not 80%, Chris. I might be 50, 55%, something like that." So I know that what they want. So they're like, he called me a cuck. First and last time I ever called a cuck before. So what are you, a cuck? I go, "Bro, I can't." And I thought he was kidding, but no. Sure enough, 10 days later, him and John went to Charlottesville. They were there for the Unite the Right rally. And again, was that the worst thing ever down there? No, but it's still horrible what people like that want, the white race and those type of things. I can understand if I think it's sick. People that want, whether it's white, black, doesn't matter. If you want to, their reasoning is they don't want to be replaced. It's like, okay, I'm biased because I'm half and half, but like that's sickening to me that people are like that. But that's real. That's real prejudice. That's real. So when we dilute it down by saying it too much, like the boy who cried wolf, girl who cried wolf, those are real pieces of shit. People go to rallies that own the white people like that. That's real racism, right? People that you're not enough white in your blood, the fuck out of here. So that is called out rightfully so. The other types of racism on the other side, the other supremacists are never called out. And it's sad to me because they hide behind their race, and no white person wants to call them out for it. It's hilarious to me. I think it's you said your comment earlier is from a couple of years ago, but I would tell you that that's no longer true. I think that now historically was a good thing if you're white, and still probably to an extent, but now it's not in vogue. It hasn't been in vogue in fashion for decade and a half to be white. So I'd say that it's more in vogue to be a minority, or if you are, you know, identify something else. I'm not going into complexities of I believe, to be clear, I think sexuality is, I think majority of homosexuals are born that way. Some probably societal things. I'm not a doctor. Trans stuff, the same thing. That's a touchy topic. I don't really believe, I believe there are two genders and sexes, but like, again, prerogative. I'm not going to, I have friends who are trans and I'm not a dick about it. If a motherfucker was like, Cidado, which has never happened, call me fuck you. I'm 35. I probably wouldn't say anymore, but like, chill out. You're not telling me what I can do in my life. Like if I was like, hey, Will, hey, Snyder, what's going on? Cidado, don't call me anymore. I'll go, Will. Okay, what? Okay, yeah, well, fine. So I've had that interaction before over the years where I forgot somebody, a friend of mine, who's where I was drinking buddies, saying, my name's Amber. I'm like, oh, and for a year I thought we identified because we were drunk in the bar. Say, no, I'm identified as a woman. Oh, my bad. I apologize about that. So again, nobody forced me to do that, but I'm not going to be disrespectful. But it goes back to just again mutual respect. So my whole thing is a lot of it nowadays is we are getting, unfortunately, if you are black, nothing that bothers me too is it really pisses me off is that when people say black and brown people, it's always like, especially when black people say it on TV, it's always black pause brown people. Technically, you should say brown than black people because there are more brown. Brown could be Southeast Asian, Indian, Pacific, Oceania, Pacific Islander, Latino, Hispanic. But black people love saying black first, and it should be brown then black because you were going technically like why we say we should, in my opinion, say men and women of the military. 90% of the military is men. That's why we say men first. Also M before W, but brown before black. BL is before BR, but still we should say brown and black people. But a lot of time you don't feel really represented by the type of thing. So it's kind of ironic that a lot of time people of color, what is that? Which color is that, right? So there's a lot of this double speaking rhetoric that really hides or masks and allows people to get away with bullshit. Because you go on TV and just hate on some white person, you can kind of get away with it. All Jimmy Fallon, all those fucking losers on all their shitty ratings. Again, it's going in the dumpster right now. All of those losers. Even in CNN, everybody on there. I mean, Fox is again. I'm not some worship Fox News. I watch. I go on Fox News and CNN every day. NPR. I do my rounds. I'm on pussy whipped by Fox News, but I'll just say that not even. It used to be a white man. Again, not saying that was a correct thing, not at all. But nowadays, like I said, that covenant of understanding of let's all be equal. No, I don't think a lot of people feel that way. I think a lot of people, more than you would think, in their heart harbor that idea that it's our time. I believe that, my core. Yeah.
Do you still watch South Park?
Periodically, I haven't watched it. I watched the big specials. I watched the COVID. I haven't watched one in like a new episode in a couple of years. I watched the big COVID one a couple of years ago. That was hilarious.
Yeah.
I mean, they're top notch. They make fun of every. I mean, they've got a little liberal leaning. Like the token one
Yeah,
was a
and
little.
it's interesting how there used to be the term South Park Republican because
Oh, I didn't know.
it was like, and Matt and Trey actually they purposely said like all of the Comedy Central media is always making fun of conservatives, like we want to make fun of liberals, and like, but we make fun of everybody.
Yeah,
Like they had, I remember in 2002 they had an episode where they made fun of the Bush administration, like trying to look for weapons of mass destruction in
yeah,
Iraq. And but like I feel like South Park really turned liberal like during the Obama years.
yeah.
And now I mean, they still have some great, like I love PC Principle.
Yes.
And
But
then
the Tolkien one was bullshit though. That was annoying. Like
the,
they need to do that.
with the
That
one
Tolkien one.
where but it actually it reminded me too in 2007 there was that episode where Randy Marsh is on Wheel of Fortune and the word was N.
Nagger. Yeah, 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 yeah.
He's like
Nagger. Yeah, to nag.
Naggers,
Nag
yeah.
somebody. Oh, yeah, that was Nagger. Yeah.
And he was
That's the
called
best. That's a great episode.
the N word guy.
Yeah,
And
literally. Yeah,
like,
yeah,
and I
yeah.
remember there's a really funny scene where Randy Marsh kisses Jesse Jackson's ass, and
Yeah,
then
kiss it.
Stan Marsh is like trying to talk to Token, and Stan goes, "But Jesse Jackson says it's okay now," and then Token goes, "Jesse Jackson is not the emperor of black
Of black
people."
people. Yeah, dude, and that he's people like that. No, and that's what the show is always funny. But again, the Tolkien episode a couple years ago, where just admit that it was very clever. Like did you see that episode? So like Tolkien's name's not Tolkien. We've been saying it wrong the whole time. It's Tolkien. Have the J.R.R. Tolkien.
Oh yeah,
So like that's like it was very clever, but like don't be a bunch of pussies. Like enough of that. Like you don't need to. Like in 2020, again the pendulum. Like the actor, I can't think of his name right now, but Hank Azaria, he stopped being a poo because he wasn't Indian for The Simpsons. He stopped doing that. Always, I mean, hell, they went so fucking far. Netflix. You ever watch the show Community? I love that show. You ever watched that
I'll
before?
have to check it out.
So there's an episode where Dungeons and Dragons, where they're all at a table together, and um, Mr. Chow, is it Ken Jong, has black on his face because he's a black troll. Not if you remember black, is the troll. And one of the black female character, Shirley, she made a meta joke. It's great, it was Dan Harmon and the Russo brothers did that stuff. So it was really, really good writing. The guys did Avengers. But she goes, are we gonna say anything about this like walking hate crime or whatever? Or was walking, and he's like, I'm dressed as an elf, a dark elf. They removed that episode in 2020 from it wasn't Netflix, now it's on Peabody because it was NBC, I believe. But they removed that episode from fucking the whole episode, mainly because Kim June, Mr. Chow was not big lips and fucking exaggeration and eating watermelon like racist bullshit. He had black makeup because he was an elf, and they removed that episode. Pussy ass. That's what I'm talking about. Kowtowing, like whenever we put the fucking black picture up, the blacks in early June 20 for George Floyd. I don't do that type of shit. I think it's, even if it's from a good principle, it's like, to me, it's, I have a lot of friends who did that, and I don't judge them for it. It sounds like I am, but I'm not. I can understand why, but I would never do that personally, because it's like, I can, just because I don't put a fucking dark fucking black, it's a black picture of this black, black darkness on the wall on my Instagram, doesn't mean I don't have solidarity. Me and my whopping 200 followers back in the day, like nobody fucking cared. But my point is, everybody kind of just bowed to it. And I don't like that in any facet, even if it's for a good reason. Yeah, it's no different than, you're not American enough. It's like, okay, pump the fucking brakes. But the national anthem thing, I can see both sides of that. But again, I want to be consistent here. And while I don't appreciate it, I understand why. And I don't want to be a hypocrite. I'm not one that's like, they're not American anymore. No, that's no different than saying, well, you didn't put that. You don't like, what do you like black rights here? Because you didn't put the thing on Instagram. Shut the fuck up. Are you being real here? You're not being real. You're being, it's very, again, herd mentality. You can do things for noble reasons, but are you really doing it because you're an individual, or you're succumbing to peer pressure? Now, we've all succumbed to peer pressure. I know I have in my life. I try not to as a grown ass man, but there are powers that be that pull you. But again, if we're consistent to who we are, hopefully that doesn't happen. But like I said, 2020 was just a fucked year for so much of that shit. And here's another one. I bet you didn't know about this one. And I want to hear your thoughts about this. In 2020, the Associated Press put out that they would no longer capitalize the W in white. They've done it now for 5 years, almost 4.5 years. And the B in black would stay capitalized, which I'm for. So Latino, Hispanic, if you're country, Mexican, etc. Yeah, it's all capitalized. In 2020, in the summer, as a result of all that shit, they kowtowed, not a coincidence. And for 4.5 years now, the Associated Press in every major outlet besides CNN and Fox News, lowercase is the W in white. Their rationale was, if we keep the white, the W, you can look this up, it's a true story. If you capitalize the W in white, it can promote white supremacy. So no, we're not asking. No, to be clear, black, capital B for black for the race is also like bullshit. How the white Caucasians don't have whites don't have a lot of common culture, bullshit. But so for 4.5 years, NPR, BBC, all the liberal bullshit ones, besides, to their credit, not CNN, for 4.5 years, the W in white has been not capitalized, regular W, lowercase w, and it's like, how are we okay with that? That's the fact that that's not talked about. You can go on right now to anything. Hell, YouTube fucking their ads when they what do you call them, the words that come up when you're on the screen when you're watching a movie or something like that. Captions. The captions have W lowercase, so they've stopped capitalizing the white race for 4.5 years. Black still rightfully, black B capital B, Latino L, H Hispanic for 4.5 fucking years now, almost 5. They've been doing that, and everybody else went with them, arguing that the W. Now, mind you, was not the argument of lowercase b for black, white stay W. That's promoting white supremacy. They weren't saying that. They simply said it in their rationale. You can look it up right now. AP News 2020. It'll say that this can't promote this, and everybody else went gangbusters with it. To right now, everybody, besides a very few handful or two, probably less than that, keep white is lowercase white. What are your thoughts on that? Because I think it's fucking despicable and I think it's the most fucked up shit and how disrespectful it is. And because they took that time to get away with it. And it's sickening to me because it's lowering white people. I'd say the same thing as any fucking body else. But what are your thoughts on that? You can fact check me. That's a real thing. That's a real thing.
So what, they made it from a capital W to a lowercase W?
Yes. The rationale being, if we keep it, yes, but we're going to keep the B black capitalized, L Latino, etc. But white, if we keep it, our argument is that.
I mean, if it's the name of a people, then it should all be capitalized.
Correct. And they shot. That's been my friend 4.5 years. Everybody you can go on, everyone outlet you go on besides CNN, Fox News, lowercase. MSNBC, BBC, NPR, they're all pieces of shit who've lowered white people by doing that. It's disgusting, and in fact, again, they got away with it in 2020 because of that, as a result of that. But it's sickening to me. White AP News. I'll read you exactly what it says. Capitalization. Just so nobody thinks that I'm telling. Let me share my screen real quick. Can you guys turn that on real quick? Can you put on shared screen?
Sure.
Thank you. Let me know when you can do it. I can do it.
Share.
I mean, it's a joke. I mean, it's so. If you read, it's just so wild that this got passed through. This is like the most apologistic bullshit ever. Let me know when I can do it.
Okay, I put it on.
Wait, there we go. I got it.
Okay.
Here we go. Do AT will. This is now August 20th, I think, in 2020. There's a clear desire to capitalize black. Most of the people who are black historical comment, blah, blah, blah. That's true. There is at this time less support for capitalizing white. White people generally do not share the same history and culture. That's bullshit. I mean, it's relative. That's like saying in Asia that you think Pakistani people have a lot in common with Chinese people. No. So we still capitalize A in Asian. So that's not, I'm mindful there's a Middle Eastern, but it's part of Asia, right? So, but this bullshit, we agree that white skin plays. So this right here, we agree that white people's skin color plays into systemic inequality and injustices. Mind you, this is for worldwide. This is not just for the United States. We want our journalism to robustly explore these things by capitalizing the term white as it's done by white supremacists, risk subtly conveying legitimacy to such beliefs. Dude, this is fucking. Anybody can agree with this? I showed this to my paralegal, who's not the most conservative person in the world. She was blown the fucking away. This is a real thing. This is sickening to
Yeah.
me. And it's been 4.5 years and nobody knows about it. So look at July 20th, 2020. That to the day, that was 4.5 years and 2 days. And everybody copied them. First of all the liberal ones, all the black ones did, like Vox and all those things. I think that ESPN might not. They might. I can't remember. I think ESPN down. Yeah. So this is ridiculous because right here, as done by white supremacists. So what you're saying is, if a white supremacist told you to jump off a building, would you do it? Like, or not, or rather not do it, or just say that here, white supremacist said that not jumping off a building that's a better way of putting it. If white supremacist said, by their logic, oh, white supremacists think if you don't jump off buildings, you're actually not a supremacist. Oh, I'm gonna jump off a building. That's their logic here. It's flawed logic of because they do it. Well, no shit, white supremacists are gonna capitalize it. So are black supremacists or fucking this, that, the other. This is bullshit logic. Oh, because that piece of shit group capitalizes white. Well, of course, that's no shit. You're capitalizing here because it's a proper noun, like black, like Asian, like Latino. Um, this is just, yeah. So they changed all this shit, dude, 4.5 years ago, and it's sickening. This is what they're teaching their kids. It's just like that's not equal. It goes back to my what I called my table commentary. Is that this is not bringing people to the table to be equal. This is saying you're lesser than by conveniently saying, well, these white supremacists say that this, therefore, and disregarding this right here, white people generally do not share the same history. Okay, that's bullshit. I mean, what are you talking about? The Roman Empire had like a bulk of. Shut the fuck up. Like, who do you? No other race. If you said that about another race, you'd be like, whoa, homie, you can't go that far. These motherfuckers say this shit, and again, the height of the summer of love. I said it sarcastically that this shit came out, and they never corrected it. It's still that way to this day, and they all do it. Besides CNN, Fox News, and that's really it. I don't really know anybody else that doesn't. But they all point and go, see, the AP did this, and there are articles about this. The AP did it, therefore it's cool. We're gonna do what the AP said, all based on this lie. What do you mean Caucasians don't have the same, what? And also it's being prejudiced because not first of all, not all black people are have the same. Yes, Western ones who came over from slavery, black because of they were forced over here. Yes, ugly past, of course, but not everybody who identifies black is. There are people coming over right now from Africa who have nothing to do with slavery, who probably have nothing to do with the people nowadays. So stop being so. Again, they just find a bullshit way to. You can look more at this other time. I don't want to keep doing this, but like, isn't that? Can you tell me? Would you agree that's eye opening? And that,
Yeah, that's why
bro,
I feel like
bro,
that's why
that's the real thing.
Democrats part of the
Lost.
reason why Democrats lost in 2024 is because they're too obsessed with
Race.
race and they're going too far with the PC bullshit. Like I support um enacting rights and making policies more culture friendly and making our society more cultural friendly, but it's what you just showed me, like that's when PC goes too far. And
You're using bleach, dude. Why is it okay that white people that can identify both of us here? Why is it that we are lesser? There's no way to take that by saying, "Oh, you sound similar culture." Define that. A nation state, which I believe there's 35 of them, 35, 37, 35 states, nations in Europe. I think there's probably what 70 or 80 countries in Africa, something like that. Call it 60 countries. But my point is, they don't all have someone in common. Like, who's the overarching entity that define or that gets to decide? Oh yeah, all these Caucasians, the Caucasus, as Cat Williams would say, the Caucasus. These white people have similar cultures. These Asians do too. Blacks. Okay, who got to decide that? The AP? Fuck you, AP. Who are you to say that? And also of all those cultures, Europe was the largest amount of Europe was of one empire twice, probably the Roman Empire as well as the Holy Roman Empire at one period of time. I don't think anybody ever took over a lot of Africa. I'm not saying it's good or bad. Just a matter of fact, the Mongolians took over a bulk of Asia, but it still wasn't the sea far. It wasn't like it was where the Romans were on Britannia, on Great Britain or in England. I don't think the Mongolians ever went out to Japan. So my point is, we don't need to get this technical because if we all agree that my point is these ridiculous hurdles. Okay, now all of a sudden it's you white people don't have enough in common with each other. Your cultures are not close enough. You're not really a thing. It's like, why is it now a metric? That's like saying, okay, all you black people, your skin color is not the same. The thing is, you're adding an additional requirements that nobody asked for. It's like the meme of like nobody asked and then somebody does some outlandish shit. It's like nobody asked for this. The AP is like, nah, whites
you know, and also FY, if you add a W in there, you're basically being complicit with white supremacy. It's like, well, I don't want a white supremacist. I don't think you do, and I don't want to be one either. But that when you equate to that, it's like that's dangerous rhetoric right there. You guys are like the timekeeper. You guys are the keeper of words here. It's like you ever see that it does hurt people. I've toned back on both those words. I don't say them anymore. I mean, I don't. It was back home when we were growing up. Woke retarded. There was a thing you say. Now people get rightfully so with the times. You need to evolve, and it's not we aren't kids anymore. Again, like I said, I don't use that stuff. I'm using it as an example right now, but I also don't like to be censored by people. But I'm mindful that you shouldn't. As time goes on, again, you should be advanced, and even I have. But it wasn't like the biggest deal in the world. Or I can't say these words, but I don't like people telling what I can say and not. And I'm sure the same thing with you, but it's a balancing act. But like the trans example I gave earlier, if somebody comes to me respectfully, hey, don't say this to me. Hey, they don't owe me an explanation. But if you're respectful, most of the time people are going to be respectful back. That's a different thing. The North, we're more old school respect. The South's different. They're way more passive aggressive down here. I don't like that. I call myself aggressive. Like I say what I mean to a fault. And then people are like, oh, you're this, you're that, the other thing. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm treating you fairly. I'm treating you how you want to be treated. I'm trying to be as nice as I can be, or if I'm a dick, okay. But I don't, but that's the biggest takeaway, man, is that I do miss home. I miss the food. I miss my friends, miss you guys. I miss my family to an extent. I miss them. But everything else I don't miss because I saw the writing on the wall. Getting if I was home right now, I'd be miserable. First of all, it's so expensive. I don't know how you guys can afford anything up there. Number one, number two, yeah, I can't fathom that shit. But anyway, like I said, I think that this type of thing. I think if my party gets more of this behind novel issues, or sorry, not novel to them, but more race issues, and it's not more of a novel. It's not just a novelty. If we actually add this stuff into our coalition, it's good for the party. That's what I want. I was going to tell you that when I run for office, I know what I'm going to be called. Latin Lincoln. Dave Lincoln, 6'3". But 2 years ago, I was drinking out in the bar in Atlanta. And when I go out drinking, I either hit on girls, whatever, or talk to people, or I'll find people, white, black, or usually it's black or Indian or Hispanic people. And I just have this conversation with them drunkenly. And one night it hit me. I'm like, Latin Lincoln. Instead of AOC, ARC. She's only 3 months older than I am. She was born a month before you, I think October of. She wasn't qualified to be in fucking Congress. I mean, if she was, then I'm qualified to be in Congress now. Maybe I am. But Latin Lincoln, yeah, that's what I'm gonna go by. Latin Lincoln. He was 6'3" on a good day. I'm 5'7" on a good day. So the Latin Lincoln is gonna unite the party, baby. That's what I'm gonna do one day.
Right. Well, I think there's so much anger in America right now and I think it's more important to be talking about. I think this is why Democrats really need to get back to their roots, which is bread and butter issues, and talking about unions and workers' rights and fair wages. And I feel like we saw some of that with Biden joining the picket line with the auto workers. And I know Bernie Sanders really I felt like was getting us back to that with his campaign. I mean, it's like if you look at since the 70s, the CEO, the gap between the CEOs and higher ups is up here, and workers is down here, and there's always going to be a gap, but the gap's gone from this to this. I mean, and
why do you care about the gap so much? If we advance as a society, I know we should press it a little bit, but if your standard of living is getting better, obviously we should, workers should get more money. It's very industry specific. Obviously, I'm not going to tell you on the one hand I'm not pro labor, I'm not pro union. On the other hand, I'm not pro multinational conglomerates who can run the world like Austin, Dr. Evil and Austin Powers, something like that, or Blofeld from James Bond. But I would say that if your quality of living as an individual is getting higher, is that really a massive focus for you? Now it comes to other people.
I've heard that argument that for example, we all have access to smartphones and 40-inch flat TVs. Free market competition works for some industries, and it's worked well for technology, but the majority of Americans have credit card debt. The majority of Americans have high mortgages. Rates just jumped up to over 7% again. There's I just was reading there's so much debt among the American people, and there's also the Affordable Care Act's got a lot more people health insurance, but the amount of money we spend on healthcare is like we spend so much more compared to the Europeans, and we don't get as good of results as the Europeans. I mean, life expectancy is actually like for first world countries, the US is actually a lower life expectancy than Japan, South Korea,
That's
and
obesity, though. A lot of that's obesity contributed to obesity, but yeah, I mean,
right. But like there's I feel like we need to focus on and there's people of all races are really struggling. And like I remember in 2011 there was the Occupy Wall Street movement where it was 99% versus 1%. Like, and I think the reason that died down was there wasn't like a clear enough coherent message. It was just a lot of angry people like shouting that they wanted things to change. Like it all started when like Bank of America was charging $5 just to do a debit card purchase, which they rescinded. But it's like
and Lehman Brothers collapsed in 2007. It's the tail end of the Great Recession, Lehman Brothers collapsing. So all that shit happened those couple of years. It's like, fuck them. I
right.
mean, yeah,
And
that's a big
like
issue.
I mean, as Bernie Sanders said, like we bailed out Wall Street in 2008. Now it's time. Wall Street should return the favor by like having a small tax on Wall Street speculation, which I don't think is very burdensome for Wall Street. Like that would bring in a lot of revenue, and we could use that revenue to pay down our debt, um, and really like and fund services for the people. Like I support President Biden's infrastructure package. He got all 50 Democrats because this passed in the Congress when it was 50-50, and then all the House Democrats and like 12 House Republicans, and then like maybe like it cleared in the Senate. It cleared the 60 vote threshold, and we got that the biggest infrastructure package since like I
What?
think what's
The
that?
IRA, talking about the IRA?
Well,
They
no,
never,
this is the infrastructure package was
oh, the infrastructure.
November
Okay, yes.
21.
Yeah, yeah, yes.
Yeah. I remember Trump kept saying we were having infrastructure week, but he never put forward an actual plan. But Biden actually got the plan done.
A lot of bridges down here they built. But my thing is, I mean, unpacking one of the issues you brought up, I mean, healthcare, I don't have an answer for that one. That one's because I have conflicting ideologies about this one. On the one hand, it's an unpopular opinion, but I don't, I can understand why people feel the other way, but I don't, I can never, I can understand it, but I cannot appreciate it. So people that think that healthcare is a fundamental right, I just can't get my head around that. And because I cannot get my head around the one because I don't believe it is a right, I think access is that changed the narrative. If I believe that it was an act that having it was your God-given right as an American to have healthcare, then I'd have a very different opinion on this stuff. But I don't, and it's because I don't think there's a meme of Dwight from the. I'm not a big Office guy, but it's like, is healthcare a right, wrong? Is it a service from another human being or another entity? And it's the truth, and that access is important. Access is paramount. That's vital. You should be you have access to it. You should not be any discriminatory practices, things of that nature. We can argue the merits of is how expensive it is, but you also got to remember though that Europe, depending on the countries looking at, if you look at the Norwegian countries, it's not fair to look at a homogenous society with a little small population versus us. We're third in the world in population, third in the world in size. China and us, fun fact, the same exact size. If you give China the little piece of land, not Taiwan, there's a little piece of land, I forget the name of it, that they say is theirs, but the world is not. They're bigger than us. If they don't, then we are larger than they are. We're basically the same exact size, like a percentage point. But we're the third biggest population, third largest, and we're not homogenous. And that it's so massive that it's So I think it is the healthcare companies first and foremost, but I'm not really sure. And we do get things like you go to hell. First of all, Canada's falling the fuck apart. Trudeau really fucked that country, and then people. It wasn't solely him, but great politician, a lot of rhetoric there, and he's just a knucklehead. But they, even back 10, 15 years ago, the whole thing about universal healthcare up there, you can go to anything. It took time to get their procedures. You can always get it here. You can get it faster here than probably anywhere in the world. I know that to be true. It's hospital specific, but you're just going to pay through the nose for it. So I don't have an answer for that one because, I don't think there really is one. I mean, one that there are answers, none that I'm satisfied with, because if I just said knock the prices down, well, that's it's not in a vacuum. It's going to have ripple effects. Where do we start? obviously there's the easy low hanging fruit. The guy who jacked up insulin prices a couple of years, or whatever drug it was. It might have not insulin, but the guy who jacked up that drug like several thousand percentage, something like that increase, and then he could do that because it's his patent. I believe it was like a while back. But my point is, there's
But
no
the
way.
Farmer Bro guy, he actually ended up
Yeah,
going to jail
Yeah.
for that, though.
So, and I don't think that's right. I think that's, but the thing is, I don't like. Long ago, in my mind, I came up with the way I conceptualize government and getting, and people's goals. In my mind, I used to look at a really complex maze, and that democracy, that democratic views on things through the government would get you very close, but you'd miss it by a wall or two. Whereas, meaning that the government can only take you so far, whereas private can, and I'm not saying it will, because I don't think the government has our best interest in mind to begin with. But I don't think I certainly don't. If I don't think the government has our best interest in mind, I certainly don't think the private actors do. But I will say that the only true way to achieve what we want is through private actors. It's through citizens, and as well through private actors in tandem with the government. But the government will not be the way there. So when the ACA came out, the White House under Barack Obama, I think in 2011, came out with a website, and it was like this little girl going through her life, and it was like socialized medicine. That's what it was. That was the end game. They couldn't get it that far. The first step was a welfare program in the 40s, Social Security, which I'm against those things, but now they're a social safety net. But in the 40s, I would have been adamantly against it. The social safety nets of the 40s, the Great Society under that piece of shit Johnson. Johnson was not a good man, by the way. But so the Great Society in '68, he dies, and then the next person who's holding the what's the expression I'm looking for? The person who takes the torch is that they tried for next step towards universal health care was the Affordable Care Act, and there's this girl you could on this it's caricature, it's a cartoon character, excuse me, and you could see her go through life from basically from death to retirement, or rather from life to death, her going through life through all the ways that the Affordable Care. I was very against the Affordable Care Act, and I think that now again it's the Republicans, and what did Trump say? He's a part of an idea. What do you say? He said something in the debate. He says, I have like a conception of an idea. They memed it back in but my point is, we've come so far where I'm not really sure, again, prices have to come down, but how do we do that? I mean, we can mandate the government, but again, is that really going to fix anything? Probably not. So it's really, and also a lot of those the lobbyists, you probably hate it more than I do, or equally as much. The pharmaceutical companies, insurance companies, lobbies, they're not going to back down. They probably run the fucking show up there, man.
I mean, the health insurance companies wrote the ACA. I mean, and I mean the reason why, I mean, Obama did something that hadn't been done, that presidents have been trying to do since Harry Truman. And the way he got a healthcare reform package was he neutralized the health insurance companies by writing a bill that was favorable to them. But
he lied about some of it, though. The doctors thing was a notable mistake or lie, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I mean, but again, I'd say it's successful legislation if you believe that's what's necessary. I don't think, again, I don't see the legislation. It set out to accomplish a goal. I will say that, not a goal I wanted. Now that simultaneously there was a whole that there needed to be legislation there. I think it was the wrong legislation, but he got it through. He had the massive, 365, I think, electoral college votes in 2008. Republicans were not going to run it back 3 times or another time. McCain basically didn't want to be president. He suspended his campaign. Remember that? Like,
when the banks failed.
Stupid. He was going to win anyway. Palin was a knucklehead. But no, I mean, I think I'm not sure how we can accomplish that one. I have opinions on a lot of things. Not so that one's a tough one because again, there's a lot I can just spew rhetoric at you, but it doesn't mean anything. I mean, I can, we're going to get this, paid him out to be the boogeyman. It's like what, and let me ask you this. The Luigi, that guy, Mangiano, I think, people glorify that man. And it's sickening to me. Oh, I've heard this cause and effect, he's CEO of this company. He blocked these people. That guy was a father and he had family, again, 2 things can be right at the same time. And for starters, let me back up for a second. Because we're not kids here, we're adults. Anybody says that type of shit, he's not a fucking CEOs. Last time I checked, are the chief officer, executive officer, but they are not. It's not a fucking totalitarianistic it's not comprised of like that. They're not authoritative in the sense that he can say everything. Without looking at that board, I can tell with certainty that a CEO is not, it's an end all be all. So people take that position of he sentenced people to die by not, by cutting back on people who are dying and withholding.
Like he raised
care.
some cancer medicines by like 1,000% when it was unnecessary.
Well, the thing is,
But I think assassination was not the right way to go
you
about.
don't kill
but,
people. That's a president,
right? Because that's what turns us into an anarchy. But
yes, but people who are glorified, I don't give a fuck what you people have been through. I've been more than my fair shit in my life. That no, you don't. You can again entertain both thoughts at once. It's fucked up what that guy did. He didn't deserve to die. But motherfuckers, you conflate those things and say, you know what? Because all of a sudden, here's what you're doing. The moment you say, like anything, like this specific instance right here, if I were to tell you that guy, Luigi, is, he did the right thing, that guy had it coming. Now I'm casting judgment in favor of, fuck, that guy deserved to die. Who the fuck am I? That's a scare, again, precedent. It's like when I was a kid, I never understood why it bothered people for property taxes. It's because property taxes almost never go down. Probably, for all our purposes, they never go down. And Old Man Yeller or Old Man River is pissed because they've been going up paying for that. I mean, remember playing football freshman year. We were building a new high school. It's opened my junior year, and remember this old man was selling chocolates for a fundraiser, or whatever, for the high school. It's 2 years out, and the guy he goes, "Why?" And I'm paraphrasing. This is 20 years ago. He goes, "Why would I buy this fundraiser for and this paved towards this school that my kids are full grown? I have no young kids. Why the fuck?" It's telling a 14-year-old kid, "Why the fuck would I pay for this thing?" And again, why are my taxes going up? Like I couldn't answer tax questions. I was 14, but why am I paying for this for something that's I can't have any utility of? Now, again, in a society, you need to have a collectivist mentality in some areas. Even I have to, defense. I don't think that we should all just bear arms outside our doors and have a military. Not at all. So all of us, even the most tribalistic people, are collectivists to a degree for safety. With that said, that guy had a point. Like that, I'd be pissed off about that too. So I'm saying is that it's the precedent. You pay taxes for 50 years, you'll be miserable because you see it coming. The precedent of this guy getting shot. Oh, people get desensitized to or chalk it up to, I'm just desensitized. No, motherfucker, you think murder is okay. There's no such thing as a justified murder. There's justified killings. But murder by definition is not, right? So that taking a life, so there are degrees and every state's different. In Georgia, we don't have degrees. We have malice murder and felony murder. But my point is, people want to hide, again, talking about hiding behind things. It is very, very dangerous for society to find a reason, whether it be, I'm desensitized to this shit. I feel that guy was a bad person. I'm judge, jury, and executioner. Yeah, this Luciano guy, he was right though. But it's like, what reality do you live in where that's okay? We should be above all of that shit. We should be able to say at the same time, I don't agree. This put a spotlight tragedy, because it is a tragedy. I'll say that anybody's fucking face. And if anybody says that it's not a tragedy, it's a piece of shit. Because the facts are, imagine you're this guy's fucking son. You get shot in the back of the fucking head, and now everybody's like, oh, you're the murderer of your dad is not getting demonized. Your dad's getting demonized. Maybe there are other things in a court of law, but why is no motherfuckers bring this forward? I'm mindful how the justice system works, and that this stuff is not so simple. But just because it's not simple doesn't mean like what the civil rights movement, Rosa Parks did or Martin Luther King was simple. Doing revolutionizing, and I don't like to use that word simply, but trying to course correct these issues that have actual powers that be behind the scenes that I think you and I both can agree on. The lobbying entities in the industry, those people, the powers that be, basically running the show on to a degree on this stuff. Yeah, that's scary. And it's not as simple as let's go after these people. No, you got to fuck around and find out. With that said, though, there are better ways to go about it. And also, this guy being from an affluent family, not that it changes anything, but there was shit right away. It was like, oh, his mother was dying. That wasn't true. But even still, I don't care.
He had lower back pain, like severe lower back pain.
So initially, it came out that his mother, before they had all the facts, that they were speculating, or somebody said that his mother was one of the people that denied services, like right away. But then that got switched over because they say he was from an affluent family, and again, he's a lower back pain, but still, the moment motherfuckers in society start saying, like the W, this is here peasant Will, peasant Alex Cidado, Will Snyder over here. Hey peasant, let me spoon feed you this stuff right here. You're too stupid to understand it and conceptualize it and figure it on your own, research it. W's no good anymore, lowercase. Hey dumbass, similarly. Yeah, this from an individual, not from a societal standpoint, or from societal, but not from the AP. Yeah, this guy deserved to die. He's a piece of shit. So it's okay. It's like, whoa, it's not.
he's hot and all. It's like, what are we doing? That's not funny. I mean, again, I have a dark sense of humor, like more than I'm going to share on this thing right here. I'll tell you when we next time I come home, we'll have a beer. I'll probably have a few, if you want. But my thing is, the principles don't change. It's like, again, the bedrock principles of okay. When was it okay to say that somebody was murdered was wrong? It was okay to do. It's the same thing with, and maybe you'll appreciate this. I can't stand this, an unpopular opinion, and people from my own side do this more. So I want to be consistent. When people say, "Oh, that child molester deserves to die," that's wrong because, again, like it's not a proportionate crime. Raping somebody, whether it's a child or a woman or a man, it's reprehensible. But murder is forever. So so when people are like, "Oh, that I'd fucking kill it," no, you would. First of all, I can't fathom this. I'm not a father yet. One day, hopefully, it will be. I don't think, great grace of God. So I don't think I might. But I don't think I'm going to change when I am a father one day. And I hope I don't. But people are dead serious, like that molester. No, and I don't like to say that because even people on my own side more. I think everybody, a lot more conservative people, are more vocal about it. Oh, I'll fucking kill that motherfucker. I'll fucking shoot that motherfucker. Whoa, it's not a commensurate thing. Rape is horrible as it is. If I had to put tiers, murder is number one. 1A, whatever you want, it's not the same thing. That's forever. That's why I'm against the death penalty, because I think one day on the Eighth Amendment, it'll be found to be cruel and unusual punishment. I believe that. That's my one very own for you liberal views. But I felt that. You have a very good memory. You remember that. I felt that way since I was a teenager. I've always been against it, because it's not the state, and also you're giving people false luck or not false luck. Excuse me, false hope. Because when from the trial happening to the appeals process, it might be several decades. And all of a sudden, you have to keep reliving it. They keep going. They're exhausting the fucking process from the state court or superior court to the appeals court, the Supreme Court of Georgia or Massachusetts, the Commonwealth. You're not gonna get a written mandate.
Florida just executed someone in 2024 who had been on death row since 1989. It was our whole lives.
Yeah, brother, our fucking whole lives. How is it? Let me be clear. I think that we should have a prison reform, but I think that in my world, I don't know how you accomplish this. I don't think it could happen. They pay for themselves. But again, I'm mindful that then all of a sudden we had, you said 40,000. I think that number actually might be outdated now, but that's the number I heard for a long time. 40,000. Call it 40,000. In my world, they pay for them. I don't know how you do it, but they somehow we make it so where they bridge that gap. Probably not completely, but I'm mindful that's also another big industry of private prisons, things like that. Not just, but also it's a big business, I believe, from private penitentiaries, state, federal. You have to get your shit from somewhere, but not as much as big pharma. They're not as, it's not the same things. They're not apples to apples. But my point is, I know I can see the government misusing that. It's a whole ticket issue. Like small town puts a bunch of people on the side of the I-95, down here it's I-75, I-85, I-20, just to get all their revenue from the tickets. Now, what they're doing is not wrong in the sense that they are ticketing people for going over the speed limit, but they're being dicks about it by where they're being. It's like, you don't really need to do that shit. So I'm mindful that I think that prisons should pay for themselves, but I think that private and the government both would take advantage of that. So the taxpayer should not pay for that shit. But I also know that, hey, I'll say if Uncle Sam found out you could send somebody to prison and they make a net positive $10 a year, I think Uncle Sam would jump on that shit. I don't. You know what I mean? I mean, what are your thoughts on that? I'm somewhat being satirical, but I'm saying that if Uncle Sam or private enterprise found out that you send somebody to jail and they don't cost $40,000, they're net $20, net $1,000, that might change people's mind about who's going to go to prison or something like that, right? So again, I'm being humorous here, but I don't. So while that would be in theory, first of all, in the perfect world, nobody would go to jail, right? Nobody commit crimes. But realistically, the taxpayer should not pay for it. I don't believe that. No, there's a lot of things the taxpayer should not pay for. But term limits, which they'll never do. None. And let's be real, nobody really wants it. Bernie Sanders doesn't want it. He's a millionaire. He has like 2 or 3 houses. That's my thing is that I get why people like his message, but he stopped being that guy probably when he was mayor of Burlington, Vermont in the 70s or 80s. He's not that guy anymore. He's a millionaire. How can he be? Also, he should be for term limits.
Right. And what's also upsets me is that our present day senators and House of Representatives, like they've all become rich by going to Capitol Hill. Like they're worth so much. They have such a higher net worth, like after serving in office than they did prior, because they get the inside info on all the stocks.
Which is wrong.
Right. As much as I admire Nancy Pelosi, she's become,
$200 million.
What's that?
I think it's $200 million she's worth.
Right, because of inside, stock trading. And it's your former senator Perdue actually was investigated for stock trading, and he was found like to not have done anything wrong. It was really just um unethical what he did. But it's like, once again, that's just what
Kelly Loeffler
politicians
did.
don't. What?
Kelly Loeffler did. That's why she lost that election. So
Right.
Kelly Loeffler, she did it in February right before Corona. Um, so it's fun. So a small world that one of my old mentors, the DA's office, he's a prosecutor now in Forsyth County. His good friend is actually Doug Collins, who's up for Veterans Affairs Secretary. He's going to be. I think he'll get confirmed. He was a House representative here. He did not. He lost in the primary to Kelly. I voted for Doug Collins. I didn't. He lost the primary. So Kelly, she got the nomination. She got the nomination, and she lost to Warnock. Doug Collins would have beat her. He would have beat her. But
Right. I remember
she was
watching
not good. She was not a good candidate, dude.
Yeah, I watched that debate, that Warnock Loeffler debate, and like Loeffler she said like over and over again, my radical opponent, Reverend Warnock, will defund the police. Like, she said that like 4 times. It's like, you gotta, say something new, and you gotta, like, I mean, even if you're arguing that he wants to defund the police, it's like, you gotta say some other stuff. But like, she kept using the word like radical opponent, like, and I mean, she was she was basically hand picked, really, and
Yes.
she didn't know how to debate.
No. And again, Doug Collins, who's now up for um is up for the Veterans Secretary for Veterans Affairs, which is a hell of a, we need somebody good in that office, of course, as secretary. He's going to be up for it. I think his confirmation will go through. I got to check with. I kind of want to go meet. I want to sit down with him. I got to talk to my friend about that and see if we can. He's gonna be a big wig in Washington, so I don't. I've been trying to do it for a couple of years, but just didn't connect to whatever it was, or they've been busy. But it'd be kind of cool just see what something like that. I've never met something like that powerful before. Like, it'd be kind of cool to pick his brains. Gainesville, he was a Gainesville representative, which is about 30 minutes north of me from here. But yeah, he would have been a good. He would have been a very good senator from the state. I think that Kemp. You asked me about that, and the things you might ask me today. That I didn't really like Kemp at first. I think he did a good job the second time. He really end of his first term, then second, I liked him. But I think that for 2026, our lieutenant governor right now is going to run. I know some people that work for him in his office. I think that he's going to, but I've heard a few names. It's a little early, but I think it's. I mean, I don't see a Democrat going to win that, and I think that it's really too early. But I think we'll take back the Senate in fucking a million years from now. I think Warnock was up for Warnock was up in 2022. He went against the Heisman winner. I can see his face right now.
Herschel Walker.
Herschel Walker, who I voted for. But he lost. But so they're not. I think they're both up. One. No, he must be up. He's up in 28, and then Ossoff. I think he had a full term in 2020. He might be up. He might be up next 26.
Ossoff's up in 26.
So I'm not sure. I don't know. I looked at. I didn't really know that much about him, but I've read about him the last couple of years. He's only a few years older than we are. He's got no ties to Georgia. He grew up here a little bit. He's not. Again, I don't know how to hustle about something. Again, who am I to say that? I'm an outsider myself, but I've been here, just shy of 10 years now. But I think that I don't know, the powers that be put him up there. I mean, he was nothing special. I mean, he was a good-looking younger guy that kissed the asses of some people did much bigger things than him. I don't think he's a bad person, certainly not. But all the civil rights. Who's the main guy that he died here a few years ago? I'm bad with names. One of the main civil rights guys. He was a big fan of, but
John Lewis.
John Lewis, yes. But like, dude, you're like 30 at the time, 4 years ago. He was like 35. It's like, dude, what the fuck do you know about shit that happened in the 60s? Like, yeah, it's cool that you met him, but like, it wasn't like you were sitting shotgun or like your dad. So it just I went to disingenuous, but it was more of you're riding the coattails to this election, which again, it's politics. I get that, but you can't tell me he's a fucking 35. He's my age. I mean, he was probably 33, 34, maybe 35 in 2020. What the fuck do you know? Yeah, so you were born in like 85, right? What do you know about shit happened in the 60s? Nothing. So, but I interned for him. Like, who fucking cares? That means you know that everything. You weren't there. So that was, I don't know. He laid it on a little thick. His kind of ties to that stuff, more ancillary, but it's like, dude, like you don't sound like a Southern, neither do I. But like, you're like a fucking I was very surprised that he came out of nowhere, in my opinion. Again, I don't follow now. I follow Democratic politics a little closer, but at the time, I was focused more on the primary, excuse me, the federal election and Warnock's seat. But I didn't really think also. I didn't think he really had a shot. I was very surprised.
Well, and then I mean, like you said, I messaged you after in between the November 2020 election and the runoff, and you mentioned, Purdue almost won outright with
Yes.
49.7%. What really killed him, I think, was he started talking about how the election was stolen and there was voter fraud, and like Trump told him not to show up to the debate with Ossoff, and like
Yeah,
Ossoff
that was
was
a
by
weird. Yeah,
himself,
yeah,
and
because the runoff. Yes, because the runoff was December. Yeah, that
yeah,
really. Yeah, that really because we get a weird law where I think we're one of the only states that has it's not just a plurality of the votes. You have to have an outright majority. I
yeah,
think
and that
one of
actually
the very few states,
started this. There's some racist origins to that too.
probably, which
It
again,
was
that's bullshit. I think that yeah, I think it's dumb. I think that I don't want somebody to win like a Latin American, 4 or 5 people running and 24%. Or in Latin American politics, at one time it was like 4 guys ran in 2000. Actually, I think it might have been Venezuela or something like that. But either way, like the winning tally was like 24%. It's not a mandate for the people. But at the same time, as you get 49.9, okay. I mean, like I'm not gonna say a limit on it, but I'd rather be for no runoff than an outright majority. And I think you are right that there are some reasons for that. But I will tell you though that I'm for. I think the federal government, um, what do you call it? When they had it lapsed a few years ago to Trump, um, they were allowed to come in to investigate Southern elections. That passed. I was happy they did that. Like, enough of that shit. Like it's not.
that was 2013. The Supreme Court ruled 5-4 that the Voting Rights Act, a part of the Voting Rights Act that said there were a bunch of states with a history of state of voter discrimination. They
Yes.
couldn't change their laws in regards to voting without federal approval. There were a bunch of states in the South, and then also the
I think
Southwest.
what.
Arizona was on that list. Alaska was also on that list.
But I thought that it. I think you are correct, but I thought for whatever reason it lapsed way more recently. I thought it was under
It's
Trump. I want to say under Trump. I thought that it was that there was. I thought there was flack he got for not reimposing something. So I could be wrong about that. But again, that type of shit's like okay, enough. Like I like small government, as you can tell. I really, I think that the government's really, I don't think it's bad. But it depends on what you think the government's there for. Nation state. For me, it's serve. It's protect us, defense. Um, obviously we need to have social entitlement programs, welfare programs. You'd ask me about George and I receiving federal funding for Medicaid. Well, we're also one of the implementation sucks. The program's awful. The Pathways program, but I do like that it makes people work for. I mean, I don't think just I mean, it's really contingent specific to the class because my understanding of how well, I know how Medicaid works, but you have to be depending on the state or rather with federal government, you have to meet a certain criteria, whether that you're disabled, you're children, et cetera. Specifically for people who make or who don't make that much money, when they apply for it, they should have to work. And I think Georgia has it at like 80 hours pay period, I think something like that. But I think that, and I'm also for drug testing. Now, again, I think that there should be exceptions. I mean, that's where I don't want the state to come in so much where I'm mindful that if a mother of 4 kids, single mother, I saw this when I was juvenile prosecutor, I see it in my civil practice doing divorces and custody cases. A single mother of 4 kids, she's smoking some weed. Do I think that she should, all of a sudden their kids should pay for that? No, I do not. It's complicated, but I do think there needs to be um, in this how I would put it forth is that there will be drug testing, but it's not black and white. Pardon the pun. It's not black and white of okay, you're off that money, and okay, well, who's going to feed those kids? I'm not a cold heart. I'm not Scrooge McDuck. I will say that I think that there's lack of motivation for people. Again, I'm super generalizing, but I think that people on Medicaid who are able to work should have to work, and I don't think that. And I think that they need to work more hours. No, disabled people different, with children different. But if you're you're just under the poverty level or 1 point whatever it's 1.667 or something, whatever it's going to be to qualify for Medicaid. No, I think that now again, Georgia's implementation, not receiving funding. I mean, it's like cutting your nose off to spite your face or your pinky finger. Like, always take the federal funding. I respect it out of principle, but if you're going to do that out of principle, you better have a plan in place. And the Pathways program in Georgia is not good. It's not. They've like enrolled like 5,500 people. It's really fucking bad. Like they said like a bar for like a couple thousand, 10,000, 20, 10, no, 20, 30,000. It's like 5,500 people as of November. So that's implementation now. But you know, but again, though, I don't believe that the government's there to fucking, with rare exception, there to be there for the people beyond, protection and, things that very minimal capacities there. The government should be there for the people. I don't believe that the nanny state's an overused term. I don't want to use that, but I bring it up now. But just I don't believe in big brother. I don't want a big government. We're a very small government. But everybody's disingenuous. I mean, it's the uniparty. They tried passing I think a Republican from Louisiana, I could be wrong about that. He tried passing last year. He brought forward, I think he was in the Congress. He was not a senator. He brought forth legislation, I think at least one time, maybe a couple times the last couple of years, to for stock to stop trading stocks and nobody wanted to hear it. So that guy brought forward legislation to stop. You have to put basically in trust, kind of what people do with their business interests when they become politicians, like what Trump did when he became president. That put into trust, you cannot trade stocks when you're a politician, and I agree with that. I think you said it earlier, like that's bullshit. But nobody wants to pass that shit. Why would I mean? It's bullshit, and they'll lie about it. But if they truly wanted that, why aren't the AOCs they're all gonna chip and chat. Even Rand Paul on my side, Mrs. Ladner's more libertarian like his dad, but I mean, he says that stuff, but I don't know. I mean, maybe he believes it. I'd like to think he does, but they're in there for 6 years, and he's an optometrist by trade, by the way. I don't know if you know that. He's a medical doctor.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, again, it's the uniparty. I mean, they don't, once you get into power, when I get into office one day, hold me to it, be, hey, asshole. Probably not in front of people. I mean, do stuff you need to, but, hey, Cidado, what the fuck, bro? You weren't elected for. If I become like that, fucking pull me aside, bro. You're bigger than me, so you can pick me up. Hey, little guy, knock this shit off. But no, I believe that. And so I'm 35. I'm gonna check back in 10 years and okay. But yeah, man. I mean, I don't know. The state's great in a lot of areas. I like the freedom. It's better. I mean, I'm not a big gun guy. Growing up, I wasn't, but we are a constitutional carry state. You can open carry. You don't need a concealed permit.
One of my when I was working security like 7 years ago, my colleague, he and his wife were going down to Georgia, and he was telling me, he's like, get this, in this town, I think it's like, it begins with a K.
Kennesaw?
Yeah, Kennesaw County. It's
Yeah.
like you're required to own a gun by law. And I was
It
like,
might be that way. Because it's funny. So yeah, I mean, maybe it is different. And again, it's just it's not perfect.
right. I mean, I support. In Florida, though, another pro-gun state, after Parkland, they passed a law that said they raised the age from 18 to 21. And honestly, I mean, prefrontal cortex is not fully developed till 25. So I support that. I actually think it should be 21, not 18, to be able to own a gun. And depending on, like, I mean, if you're maybe at like 18, you could go to like the shooting range with your father or like go hunting with your father, but just not like being
What if
able
you're
to
a kid?
buy. What's that?
You go hunting with your dad if you're a kid?
Yeah.
Okay.
You
No,
go
I'm not
hunting.
being a dick. I just want to, okay.
Well, yeah, actually, hunting with your dad as a kid is already allowed, but like
Yeah.
maybe like at 18 you could go to the gun range,
Yeah.
like and rent a gun, but like that gun doesn't leave the gun range. But like owning a gun, like purchasing and owning a gun from a store, for example, should have to wait till you're 21. I mean, it's like because like sometimes that 18-year-old's not thinking clearly, and like that 18-year-old who's hasn't had a very good life, and they don't have, and then they decide to go on a shooting rampage with the gun. But like if they give them the opportunity to live to 21, to really think things through and be like, okay, you know what, it doesn't matter that I had a bad childhood and adolescence, like I can live a good adult life, and then they're a lot less likely to I feel like go on that shooting rampage at 21. I mean, that kid Nick Cruz was only 19. Like he shouldn't have been able to purchase the AR-15 like that. And
It's a tough one.
but
Guns are always tough.
but they also passed. I support. As a prosecutor, I really want to hear your take on this, and then afterwards, I think it's actually 11, almost 11. This is officially the longest podcast I've done. So
We're gonna
thank
have me
you.
on if you
Congrats.
want. if you want, again, I apologize. I'm a little nervous. I don't mean to keep talking, but like, I'd love to. I feel like this could go on for a lot longer. So if you have me on whenever you're, again, if you want, of course. And I'm gonna
We
be,
do,
hey, that guy, that concerned fucking, that guy sucked. That guy used to be the man. Fuck that guy. If you feel that way, it's like, oh shit, man, my bad.
we
But
could
I'd
definitely
love
do a
to,
part two and
yeah, down
stuff.
the line. Yeah.
But I feel like in Florida passed this, and it was very big for Florida to pass this because it was the first time gun laws got stricter in Florida, dating all the way back to the 80s. But they're called red flag laws. Like
Yes.
if you're accused of a violent crime and you currently own guns, those guns are confiscated until the adjudication takes place. I mean, I
Yes.
see it as like, if you get arrested for drunk driving, for example, you're not going to be able to legally drive a car in the days that follow, and the
There's
law's
a
going
difference though.
and then the law's going to make it so that you're not going to get behind the wheel of a car until the case is adjudicated or you serve your time, your license suspension. So I think we should apply the same thing to guns, and it is working down in Florida. Like they've already taken like thousands of guns have been taken away from people who are accused of stuff like domestic violence or like they or from like armed robbery, if like they committed the armed robbery, which is always going to be an illegal crime, but like they legally bought that gun. But if they get arrested for armed robbery, that gun's going to be confiscated in the meantime between when they're arraigned and when they have their trial. So do
So
they have
here,
what are the gun laws, and do they have red flag laws in Georgia?
not red law per se, but similarly, like so we don't have restraining orders here. We have TPOs, temporary protective orders, and there's really only three types: there's dating, family violence, and stalking. So we call them quasi criminal because they're civil in nature in the sense that, okay, so if I prove the three elements, family violence, for example, say a married man slapped his wife around. Okay, three elements there of the crime, or not crime, excuse me, three elements of a family violence 12-month protective order. Relationship, okay, you're married, check mark. I can prove that there's an episode of family violence. Okay, she testifies, he slapped me, get some pictures of that. Okay, third element is the likelihood of receivability of it happening again. So it's civil in nature, but if the judge, so the standard of evidence is not reasonable doubt, it's preponderance of the evidence, 50% plus one, more likely than not. So is it more likely than not this husband could do this again? And the judges on overwhelmingly err on the side of caution when they grant TPOs because look at it like this. Okay, well, if I don't grant this, assuming they believe that the family violence happened, okay, if I decline this, those two people are going to go back to their home, and maybe the irony is they might beat the shit out of each other now, they might kill each other. So it's quasi criminal because once if a TPO is granted, then you're on the family violence registry. If you contact the person now because you've been put on notice, you would not get arrested for misdemeanor stalking. You get arrested for aggravated stalking and felony because you've been put on notice, the protective order, do not contact them. So you jump right up with aggravated stalking. Now, most prosecutors, you get arrested for that. Most prosecutors will use their discretion, will knock it down to a misdemeanor, depending on the facts, of course. But you're on the family violence registry, take anger management classes, can't talk to the person for 12 months, or and the kids too, if the family violence was with them as well. And the firearms are relinquished for 12 months. You cannot possess firearms for 12 months. That's civil. Now, again, quasi criminal because it has criminal ramifications. So when you get pulled over, you're on the family violence registry. So law enforcement, so you can see you here, it's called your GCIC, your criminal history. Same thing in Massachusetts, but like you pull it up, they can see clear as day, family violence registry. What's fucked up is that it's online too, and people don't know the difference in the law. They see family, they'll equate civil family violence to criminal domestic violence. It's like one's liability, one's guilt, and people conflate those terms all the time. It's be very careful, especially when you're doing podcasting like this. You don't want to call somebody a rapist. Not that you would, but people are very careful with the rhetoric when it comes to those type of things. But yeah, so Georgia had that's protective order, but we were a we were a what do you call it? Standing ground state, which nobody really knew about. But then after Ahmaud Arbery, and I actually one of my old mentors at the DA's office, she went down there after that shit and became the number 2 in command of that circuit. Because that DA lost the election in 2020, and then the new DA asked Mimi, Miss Melissa, she'd been a badass prosecutor, been in prosecutor for 30 years, something like that. She from my so I had a lot of all stars in my office. I was a little low on the totem pole. These people brilliant, like amazing prosecutors, very lucky. Deborah ruined that, but Mimi ended up going, Miss Hines, she ended up going down to that circuit where Brunswick, that's where those father and son shot Ron Arbery. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
Yeah. So that's when in this, the state overturned stand your ground then, which I can see. I'm not. I want to see that as opportunistic. I don't mean like that. I shouldn't. That's not what I mean it. But it was. I'm very for those type of things. And but again, I can understand why you would want to revoke stand your ground. I don't try. I have very healthy skepticism of the government. I think the people. I got a few firearms myself, but people want to have as many guns as they want, and have at it. I mean, that's again, you said earlier about driving. It's a good example, but again, driving is a privilege, it's not it's not a constitutional right. So that's where I don't. But again, I don't think that it's just such a trick, a slippery slope of on the one hand, you want people, responsible gun owners, and most of the shit that does happen is from people using guns illegally. Well, every crime is illegal, but getting a lot, oftentimes they're illegal, more probably more often than not, especially when they're children. They can't legally own them. So balancing, red flag laws, mental flag for mental health, all that with a tyrannical government. I'm not saying that our government is. I don't believe that. There's a lot of sketchy shit like Cambodia. Nobody never in our history books. You never hear about Cambodia in the 70s or the 60s, right? But the government should not have that type of information. Like I don't want the government should not have shit on us if I'm in my world, but I know they do. So it's hard to balance those two things because again, I know you've probably heard a million times from conservative people, a tyrannical government or a variation of that. I'll tell you is this. That probably doesn't. If we did a bunch of, I'll be very quick about this. If we did a bunch of scenarios, I bet that happens 1 out of a million times, less than that. That's still one too many, right? So I don't think the government's gonna do anything like that. I'm not a fanatic but I will tell you that even the possibility, like the eugenics thing earlier, or like the table thing, it all comes back to stones or steps to that thing. Like the Tennessee judge should never have done that because step 999 to 1,000 is eugenics, where we can start making our babies look a certain way, certain race way, or certain way. We start, they've had the technology for decades now. I think since Japan's had the technology for decades to fix genes. It's like, okay, but they don't do that because for ethical reasons, because, all of a sudden we get past diseases. What are the right genes, right? You get an Adolf Hitler over here, you got this person, that person, all of a sudden it goes to preference versus that type of shit. That's why that shit's very, very controversial, as it should be. But same thing with firearms. I mean, it's on the one hand, I don't trust that the government's gonna do the same thing. If a fucking AP News, which is a private entity, I'm mindful of that, can just declare to the world, very well, AP was the thing for, I heard AP because of the rankings for football and things like that, but the AP is at the benchmark. And all of a sudden they just declare, yeah, white's not, lesser than, and here's the reasons why, don't ask us anything else. And then everybody else, respects them and just jumps at that. And that's been part of our society for 4.5 years. That's a big fucking deal. Could you imagine the opposite? We're a lower S for, or H for Hispanic, or L for Latino, A for Asian, B for Black. Can you imagine the fucking fallout from that? So all I gotta do is switch. I did my job. I love, once every few months, I'll get some older attorney. And I had a case a couple years ago where my client was like 12 years younger, 13-year marriage. He could stay at home, live out his dream as a musician. She worked boss. She made a bunch of money. So the guy's like, yeah, it's not really an alimony case. I go, but yeah, it's pretty sexist to you. And he was aghast. He let me know he's been a partner in a law firm in Atlanta for 35 years, blah, blah, blah. So I got my shot into him. I was being serious. I go, he was aghast. What do you mean I'm being sexist? I go, buddy, switch to sexist real quick. Imagine if you had a 49-year-old, 50-year-old wife, or a 55-year-old wife in a, you had a 40-year-old wife and a 55-year-old man, husband, making $200,000 a year, $180,000 a year. You're gonna tell me that's not an alimony case? Well, I go, yeah, that's pretty sexist to you because, again, my guy, the only difference is their sex, their gender. My guy, that was the agreement. So I like to catch people in that because it's showing them their own hypocrisy. And again, it's no different here. So that's in the big picture. It's just realizing, hearing what people say, the words come out of their mouth, and versus the rhetoric, and also, is it their own original thought? Is it just plain rhetoric? And also, what's the intention behind that? Because the last thing I want to discuss with you very, very briefly is the word fair. I think you brought it up earlier, but I think one of the greatest misnomers, biggest bullshit things in politics is when people say fair share of taxes. Because what people are doing is, the word equal and fair do not mean the same thing. They're not, to a degree, they are synonyms, but they're not shot for shot, dollar for dollar, apple for apple. They're not synonyms. So from my perspective, I don't believe in our tax system. I think it's very bullshit. The progressive tax system is nonsense. because how is it people use the word fair and they incorrectly when they say a billionaire should pay the fair share. Well, A, how do we determine fair? B, people being not you, but people when they use that, I think a lot of them, whether they realize it or not, are being disingenuous because they're conflating. So they're conflating the words equal and fair. Okay, so fair does not mean what who. If I say I Alex say that every dollar after $1 million should be 90%. I think that's how it was in like the 50s. It was like a 90% progressive up to 90%, 80, 90% over a million or two couple million, something like that. Who the fuck is that fair to? Now, if you don't make any money, it's like, fuck that. That motherfucker should pay the fair share. But when liberals say that shit, it drives, I've been kept pointing out to people for probably 10 to 15 years, maybe 10 years, that when people, liberal leaning people say fair share, it's like, well, it sounds great in rhetoric. It's great rhetoric. It's amazing. Fair share, that's right. It's true. Everybody should be treated equal. And in Texas, they should pay the fair share. Billions should pay. Who the fuck defines fair? They're all lying about that, or at minimum be disingenuous because of the fact that fair is arbitrary and it's not being fair. Actually, if anything, they're actually being unfairly taxed because again, this whole thing is predicated on a philosophical difference in opinion or a belief. Because again, fair would mean the same. The fair would not mean more or a commensurate proportion. So if everybody paid 133% for taxes, you make 3,000, you pay 1,000. You make 3 billion, you pay 1 billion. That's fair. But people use that misnomer all the fucking time without even realizing it. And it's the biggest one I love to point out to people because, again, it sounds incredible, but it's being disingenuous at least in lying, these politicians lying, because, again, there's no possible way you can turn yourself into a fucking pretzel, but there's no way to define fair differently. It's literally taking the definition of the word fair and throwing in another definition for just that sentence, and then just don't look at it. Don't care. It sounded good though, didn't it? But don't look at it. That's what people do. And I'm emphatic about that. That's fair text. It's bullshit. Like, no, again, should pay more. Okay. I get why people think that. But when they say fair, they hide behind the word fair. It's a semantical difference, but it is super impactful. Because there's a fundamental difference in they should pay more versus they should pay fair. Oh, fair is equal. That's important. There's a fundamental difference there. And it's one word makes all the difference, though. What are your thoughts on that? I thought about that for many years. So,
I mean, I think what fair share means is that if you're making like if you have a high income, then it's like I mean the true definition of fair is like a flat tax where everyone pays 5%. I mean
that would be fair.
that's what we have here in Massachusetts, and we just changed it in November 22. We passed a ballot initiative that said once you hit $1 million, any income above $1 million is taxed at 9%, not 5%. So I think that's a good compromise. Like we bring in, right? Because I mean, studies have shown that we bring it at the federal level when the rich pay like a slightly higher percentage of income tax compared to the middle class. Like you bring in a lot more revenue, and what we're doing with the revenue.
But is that fair?
Well, I mean, it's
because real quick, that sounds very outcome oriented.
it's fair in the sense that the millionaires could afford it. It's kind of like
that's your opinion. That's your opinion, though.
Well, two analogies I have is like it's like in the NFL, for example, if you win the Super Bowl, like great, that's the equivalent of being like a multimillionaire. But if you win the Super Bowl, you're not going to get the first overall pick in the draft, or you're not going to be able to pick until the 32nd overall pick.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like if you're a multimillionaire, you shouldn't it's like fair in the sense that like you should pay 9% rather than 5% because you're better off. Or it's kind of like in Mario Kart where there's 8 racers. If you're in if you're in first place, you're not going to be getting the good items like the lightning strike and the star. Whereas, so I see it kind of like that. And in Massachusetts, it's been earmarked for we're doing infrastructure improvements and school funding. And there's actually a bill to raise teacher salary. The starting teacher salary would jump up to 70,000 a year. And then paraprofessionals who, I mean, I work in schools, so I can tell you they're needed and they're really underpaid. It would bring paraprofessional pay to like 55,000. So I support tax systems like that.
So, and yeah, that makes sense. I mean, can we agree that that logic makes sense, but the numbers are arbitrary?
Right. I
So
mean,
that's the thing is my concern is that I like that example. It's probably the best one I've heard from anybody. But my problem with it is that it's like a shield of, okay, here's my logic here, like you just use with the NFL, but then it gives you kind of carte blanche, not kind of, it gives you carte blanche to be like, okay, first question, why is it fair? There's your answer. Okay, second question, okay, well, that said, how much do they pay? Because the reasoning is not, there's no logic, there's no, not logic, there's no, um, that logic does not give an amount, and then therefore the fair amount is subjective to the person. That's the issue. Is that all of a sudden it's okay? Well, what's fair then? Is it twice? Is it three? You might think fair is 5 times. I might think it's 10 times. I might say a million is a crisp cutoff. It looks cool on paper, sexy, aesthetically pleasing. 6 zeros, well, 8 with the pennies, but that's a random fucking. It's like trimesters, and we'll get into abortion next time. But fun fact. I don't know if you look back in history on that one. That was completely made up. Trimesters are not a real thing. When I say they're not real, they were. That was research they did up to Roe v. Wade. They were made. So they came out with trimesters, but there's no scientific significance to the splitting of pregnancy into thirds. It's just the terminology they came out with when the research was being done before Roe v. Wade. But that's an arbitrary thing. So splitting up a pregnancy into ninths or thirds it's not based in science. It's arbitrary, and we've kept that since Roe v. Wade. It's a fun fact about that. But there's no significant. They've now looked at this. They've now it's okay. It's thirds. It's like a football game. You can do a football game, 6-10 minute parts, right, instead of 4 quarters. No different. But my thing is with taxes is that you have to be careful of being outcome driven. Like you just said. I'll let you go in a second, but you just said a couple minutes ago that the studies show that the government gets more money. So that logic is outcome driven, meaning that because the government gets more money, there we should just tax people. But then you got to ask yourself, is that fair? If we tax everybody more money in the short term before motherfuckers can leave, the government get a fuckload more money from poor people, middle class people, and rich people. Because now again, the fallout is people go to other countries to live. But in the short term, you tax everybody 80% and they can't get away from it somehow. The government's gonna get now it's short-sighted because you need to balance that with entrepreneurship. But that's the issue though, is if your outcome. So that's my thing about fair share is that yes, there's Marxist economics will teach you that say it costs bare bones $40,000, $50,000 to live off of. That if you make $50,000 a year versus making $250,000 a year, 5 times, 200,000 more than that minimum, that's where a lot of logic comes from for people who are for a progressive tax system. But again, what I don't like is what I would prefer to hear, people can go tell me to go fuck myself, whatever. But I would prefer people to not mince words and be direct and say they should pay more money because they earn more money. That sounds like hell. It's more honest and it's not the whole, they should pay their fair share. Their fair share is this, you're using the wrong word, you motherfucker. Like, it's like when people go, you're racist against Mexicans. Bitch, Mexicans are nationality. You cannot be racist against another race. It's semantic, but words fucking matter. And if we start letting and again, definitions, something we get into next time too, they keep changing definitions. Stop doing that. Expand in words. Now the definition of feminism is the equality of sexes. Femme is fucking Greek for female. So stop, equality, egalitarianism or equalityism. That's more on the nose. But point is, people keep, words matter, and we need to use them correctly, because if we don't, or dare I say, people take advantage of them, it's an amazing shield. It's a bolt, and in a lot of ways, it can be a sword and a shield. Fair taxes is like a sword and a shield. It's like, because anybody hears that motherfucker, wait, if I say that somebody's not paying fair share of something, it begs to reason. The implication is strong. The implication is what? That this motherfucker's not paying. This person just said this motherfucker's not paying their fair share of things. They must be bad. People draw, what's wrong with that? Why is that not happening? Why automatically, right or wrong, there's a problem. There's an issue here because that person has been alleged to not have paid their fair share. Whereas like, no, it's not. What word are we using here? So that word is so, I've thought about that so much on a spectrum. Equal, fair. They kind of bleed over a little bit, but it's so convenient to use them as one super word: fair equality or fair equal. They're not paying their fair equal like that. Okay, make a new word up then. But it's not as mean fair. And why that matters is the average person doesn't, what are you supposed to speak at like a 4th grade level to people, like small words? That's why Trump gets, appeals to a lot of people. Not because people are stupid, but that's the way you want, use a 3-letter word, a 4-letter word instead of 10 letters or 4 syllables. That's how get, the lowest common denominator. That's how you're supposed to speak to people to gain their trust. Not because people are stupid, it's because it's the most efficient way. With that said, fair share is, again, I not to keep harping on it, but it's one of my favorites because it's so easy to unpack. And it's like, because there's really no argument against it. And I'm not saying, let me be clear, I'm not saying you made an argument. That is a talking point that people say for taxes, and I get where you're coming from. But on its face alone, it doesn't hold up, that rhetoric, because again, it's not saying you, but it's when people say it, oftentimes it's like speaking on both sides of your mouth. It's like, what I'm saying to you is fair, but what I really mean is pay more. It's like, well, that's a question mark. What do you really mean? So I wish people were fucking real. Again, there's probably multiple examples of this on my side of the aisle. I'm not just picking on liberals for that. This is the most glaring one. We can speak next time. I can shit on my own party or my own people. One thing I'll tell you is, just to end on a positive note, it's like one of the biggest hypocritical things on evangelical or just Christian conservative people is when their hatred towards homosexuals, where it's like, hey, when I get married, you're a wonderful married, you're a lovely wife. I haven't said hello, but she's a lovely wife. I saw pictures, handsome guy. When I get married one day, the only difference is that's not, from my religious standpoint, it's no longer a sin anymore. Not saying everybody should be religious, not at all. I wish they were, but choices. My point is, same people who are judgmental Christians will bash homosexuality, which is seen as a sin, and it'll be on a sin because God sees it that way. With that said, though, my sin of premarital sex goes away when I get married, right? So it's not fair. And again, I'm not saying that my morals should be the whole world. Never, not once. My morals are mine. I don't think Alex Cidado's morals should be the whole world. But I think it's very hypocritical when people on my side of the aisle are so judgmental of what gay people do, or lesbian, anybody in that community does. Because again, it's like, first of all, you're not supposed to judge A, and B, I'm sure a lot of you fuck before marriage and you jerk off and you watch, like, you do your own sins. Like, let's be so fucking pious over here. And I mean, use vulgarity with religion, but pump the fucking brakes. Stop being, your Savior, Lord and Savior, you believe in that, would not want you to be that way. Now, I'm not gonna go as far as the immigrant one. I'm not gonna go as Jesus would be a socialist. I'm not gonna go that far. But I will say that these people need to stop fucking judging, because again, those people, those are your brothers and sisters. And that's what part of my aisle needs to chill out with. Is like, hey, that person with a dress over there, or this, that, the other thing, they go by these pronouns. What? They're still your fucking American citizen. They're still your boy. They're still your friend. They're still your mother, father. My sister came out to me when I was 21, right? And I was in her wedding right after I passed, right before the bar exam. My dad came out to me. My parents married for 30 years. My mother died June 6th, 2009. If she had lived 17 more days, they would have been married for 30 years. June 23rd, 79, June 6th, 2009. My dad was widowed for 8 years, didn't date anybody. When I came home for starting my new job at the DA's office in South Georgia before bar results, I quit the job after a couple months. I was home for another wedding in September, another friend. My dad's like, Alex, I have some life-altering news. I got 3 hours of sleep, start my new job in bumfuck South Georgia the next day. I go, what's up, Dad? Because I'm gay. I go, what do you mean you're gay? He goes, Alex, and I looked at him in the eyes. I knew that moment. I'm not articulate, I ramble, but I knew that moment, Will, that I had to. This guy took me to his home. Like, I adopted me. I could be, it's my father. I love this man. I remember I said to him, Dad, you look like you used to live in black and white. Now you look like you're living in color. And he had this big smile on his face. Because who am I to fucking judge you for that? I mean, hey, I won't lie to you. It's hard. And I've had years to reconcile it. It's hard. My mother was my best friend. And, I raised a lot of questions I don't want the answers to, because, I don't want to even know what my dad thought of this. He married 30 years a woman. Now he's dating a guy. He's been the same guy. He's a school teacher. Nice guy. Charlie. My dad's been with this guy for 6.5 years now. I got, so I found out September of 18. So Jillian and my dad came up. And I think if they ever get married one day, I'll be in his wedding. I'm gonna be the best man. We already talked about it. So let me, I come off as a hard-hearted, vocal guy, but you know me a long time. I had a big heart. I just, it comes out bombastic, but I just wanted people to be treated fairly. And I don't think I'm that far apart than you. I mean, politics aside, I think we both want no bigotry. We don't want hatred. I don't want to speak for you, but I assume you're still the Will I used to know. That I think we agree on how we get there. It's difficult, but I think through respect and grace, conversations where we just have good discourse and realize that, hey, I don't have all the fucking answers. You probably do. A lot more of you to put answers in. I was small compressed little package right here, but no. In all seriousness, I don't have all the fucking answers. Maybe I did when I thought I did when I was probably 15, like an idiot. But 35-year-old man, I don't think I do. And I think that I can learn a lot from people on both sides. And again, if the bedrock principles are doing for other people, not being too greedy, being mutual respect, no looking at not inner biases, but I don't like that terminology, but looking at, hey, sometimes I have preconceived notions of shit. let's figure that shit out. Let's, this person's not the emblematic of their whole people. Like, let's chill out with the nonsense. Like, and just realize where our shit comes from inwards. Because a lot of people don't look inwards. They just exist. There's a quote from Braveheart: "Every man dies, but not every man lives." Right? And I love Mel Gibson. On a side note, but I'm all over the place. Gays, blacks, Mel Gibson. A lot of different topics. But at the end of the day, if you want what's best for your family, and you think that everybody's treated with dignity and respect, then I'll be your friend. I don't care if you're a Marxist or a fucking super far right libertarian. I don't give a fuck. Like it, but if you accept me for who I am, and of course I'm going to accept somebody else. Now sometimes I can't. It's hard for me to get my head around things because society's moved a long way. If some extreme person, I'm not going to throw out things here, but somebody more new, I'm a man of my time, just like you are. I will do my best. One of the nice things that anybody's ever told me is that at work with Josh, and at the end of the day, I'll always do my best. If I fuck up, I'll apologize for it. If I 99 times out of 100, if I made a mistake, somebody pulls me aside, I tell my staff this all the time. I have for many years, my interns over the years, staff. Hey, I tell them, look, if I make a mistake, I'm very casual. If I say something you don't like, just pull me aside. Let's talk about it. I go, and I really mean that. Ask anybody else here. I'm very loud. I come in big fucking, probably annoyed because I realize I tell them, I walk in the office annoyed because I realize, fuck, I'm a divorce attorney. I don't like doing this shit. But I go, I'm never mad at anybody. But if I have a problem, and I've had staff come to me, hey, Alex, made a joke. Hey, my bad. I apologize. Once in a great while, I'll think I'm wrong. But 99 times out of 100, 999 times out of 1,000, I'll reflect and realize, hey, I'm too casual. I shouldn't have said that. Or, hey, that was my bad. No intent, no malice behind it. But I'm not above saying I'm sorry. I can't stand people like that. But, I'm not above that. If I fucked up, I'm going to own up to it. Because, again, that person deserves to know that, hey, we're cool now, but I made a mistake. But people above that type of shit drive me up a wall. But if you can respect other people, admit when you're wrong, look at both sides of things, you go a long way. Sorry about that long tirade.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely.
I can keep going, so I'm my bad.
All right. So it looks like we hit
Almost 4 hours.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's try to meet up again. Let's see. I think next Wednesday I might have a meeting. I'm not really sure, but let's just keep messaging and try to find times whenever we can.
Yeah, man. I mean, again, I'm sorry, I just nervous talk sometimes, and I've never really done this before, so my bad for talking so much.
Oh,
But,
that's fine. And the point is, you're getting your viewpoints out there, and
I want to hear yours.
Yes, your experience is out there.
Yeah. So listen, that was a lot more effortless. Thank you very much for being a good host. And we'll figure out whenever. I'd love to be back on whenever it's good for you. And also, thank you very much again. It's great seeing you. I know I see you in fantasy football all these years, but for what it's worth, Will, you've always been a great man. And
thank you.
You're always very lucky for that. I'm sure she's a lucky gal too. And you're a very lucky man, of course, first and foremost. But like I said, next time I won't be as I'll take it back a little bit because I definitely want to hear a lot more from what you told me before, what this discussions and pick your brain about things. So thank you very much for having me on, and we'll do it next time and do it well. Maybe not 4 hours, but up to you though. But we'll figure it out. All right.
Yeah, and hey, when you think you'll come up to Massachusetts this summer?
Probably this summer. Yeah.
Oh yeah, when you do, let's try to get together. Let's get that beer.
Where are you living? Where are you living?
In my hometown of Mansfield.
Mansfield. Okay, that's not far. Comcast Center, right? Is that what it's still called? Xfinity Center? Yeah. Word.
Still working my security there.
Hell yeah, man. That's awesome, brother. What's your wife do?
She's looking at some new jobs right now.
Oh, yeah.
And she used to work in finance, but now she wants to venture off to something else.
Yeah, bro. Well, listen, I really appreciate you. I'm gonna lie, I was thinking to myself, I thought this was going to be a lot. I thought to myself, how am I going to get past an hour or two? Then I forget that I don't shut the fuck up. So then it's like, okay, 4 hours come by and go. But listen, let me know about that. Thank you very much for being gracious and great host. And we'll talk soon.
All right, absolutely. And thank you for coming on tonight.
Yes, sir. I'll talk soon, man. Take care.
Later.